Did you say you'll unmute us when we're ready to talk?
I think we'll unmute ourselves.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, I don't know how to get my camera working. It's just like,
You tried being good.
no.
Rude.
Oh, geez.
You tried going into your video settings.
Did you just maybe just restart, reboot, Laura?
Okay.
You're gonna share the link, Dad?
David, you're muted.
Oh, thank you. Some water. I meant to grab some water.
Night sequence. Series of shots of various streets and buildings in the town of Bedford Falls, somewhere in New York State. The streets are deserted and snow is falling. It is Christmas Eve. Over the above scenes, we hear voices praying.
I owe everything to George Bailey. Help him, dear Father.
Joseph, Jesus, and Mary, help my friend Mr. Bailey.
Help my son George tonight. Don't have Bert.
I love him, dear Lord. Watch over him tonight.
Please, God, something's the matter with Daddy. Please bring Daddy back.
Muted that.
Pat, you're muted.
Yep. Camera pulls up from the Bailey home and travels up through the sky until it is above the falling snow and moving slowly toward a firmament full of stars. As the camera stops, we hear the following heavenly voices talking. And as each voice is heard, one of the stars twinkles brightly.
Hello, Joseph. Trouble?
Looks like we'll have to send someone down. A lot of people are asking for help for a man named George Bailey.
George Bailey, yes. Tonight's his crucial night. You're right. We'll have to send someone down immediately. Whose turn is it?
That's why I came to see you, sir. It's that clockmaker's turn again.
Oh, Clarence. Hasn't got his wings yet, has he? We've passed him up right along.
Because you know, sir, he's got the IQ of a rabbit.
Yes, but he's got the faith of a child. Simple. Joseph, send for Clarence.
A small star flies in from left of screen and stops. It twinkles as Clarence speaks.
You sent for me, sir?
Yes, Clarence. A man down on Earth needs our help.
Splendid, splendid. Is he sick?
No, worse. He's discouraged. At exactly 10:45 p.m. tonight, Earth time, because there are no time zones on Earth, that man will be thinking seriously of throwing away God's greatest gift.
Oh dear, his life. Then I've only got an hour to dress. What are they wearing now?
You will spend that hour getting acquainted with George Bailey.
Frilly underwear, are they still wearing that? No? Yes, okay. Sir, if I should accomplish this mission, might I perhaps win my wings? I've been waiting for over 200 years now, sir, and people are beginning to talk.
What's that book you've got there?
Ah, The Adventures of Tom Sawyer.
Clarence, you do a good job with George Bailey, and you'll get your wings.
Oh, thank you, sir. Thank you.
Poor George. Sit down.
Sit down? Why should
If you're going to help a man, you want to know something about him, don't you?
Well, naturally, of course.
Well, keep your eyes open. See the town?
The stars fade out from the screen and a light, indistinguishable blur is seen.
Where? I don't see a thing.
Oh, I forgot. You haven't got your wings yet. Now look, I'll help you out. Concentrate. Begin to see something?
The blur on the screen slowly begins to take form. We see a group of young boys on top of a snow-covered hill.
Why, yes. This is amazing.
If you ever get your wings, you'll see all by yourself.
Oh, wonderful.
Exterior, frozen river and hill. Day, 1919. Group of boys are beginning to slide down large shovels. One of them makes the slide and shoots out onto the ice of a frozen river at the bottom of a hill.
Yippee! Well, who's that?
That's your problem, George Bailey.
A boy?
That's him when he was 12, back in 1919. Something happens here you'll have to remember later on.
Series of shots as 4 or 5 boys make the slide down the hill and out onto the ice. As each boy comes down, the others applaud. Close shot of George Bailey at bottom of slide.
And here comes the scare baby, my kid brother, Harry Bailey.
Close shot Harry on top of hill preparing to make his slide.
I'm not scared.
Come on, Harry! Harry,
Medium shot. Harry begins his slide very fast. He passes the marks made by the other boys, and his shovel takes him onto the thin ice at the bend of the river. The ice breaks, and Harry disappears into the water. Close shot of George.
I'm coming, Harry.
George jumps into the water and grabs Harry. As he starts to pull him out, he yells.
Make a chain, gang, a chain.
Other boys lie flat on the ice, forming a human chain. When George reaches the edge with Harry in his arms, they pull them both to safety.
George saved his brother's life that day, but he caught a bad cold which infected his left ear. Cost him his hearing in that ear. It was weeks before he could return to his after-school job at Old Man Gower's drugstore.
Dissolve. Exterior Main Street, Bedford Falls, spring afternoon. 5 or 6 boys are coming toward camera, arm in arm, whistling. Their attention is drawn to an elaborate horse-drawn carriage coming down the other side of the street. The carriage drives by. We catch a glimpse of an elderly man riding in it. The boys watch the carriage.
Mr. Potter.
Who's that? A king?
That's Henry F. Potter, the richest and meanest man in the county.
The boys continue until they reach Gower's drugstore. It is old-fashioned and dignified, with jars of colored water in the windows and little else. As the kids stop,
So long.
Gotta work, slave.
interior drugstore. George comes in and crosses to an old-fashioned cigar lighter on the counter. He shuts his eyes and makes a wish.
I had $1 million.
He clicks the lighter and the flame springs up.
A hot dog.
George crosses over to the soda fountain, at which Mary Hatch, a small girl, is seated watching him. George goes on to get his apron from behind the fountain.
It's me, Mr. Gower, George Bailey.
Mr. Gower, the druggist, peers from a window in the back room. We see him take a drink from a bottle.
You're late.
George,
Yes, sir.
Violet Bick enters the drugstore and sits on one of the stools at the fountain. She is the same height as Mary and the same age, but she is infinitely older in her approach to people.
Hello, George. Hello, Mary.
Hello, Violet.
George regards the two of them with manly disgust. They are 2 kids to him and a nuisance. He starts over for the county counter.
2 cents worth of shoelaces?
She was here first.
I'm still thinking.
Shoelaces.
Please, Georgie.
George goes to the candy counter.
I like him.
You like every boy.
What's wrong with that?
Here you are.
George gives Violet a paper sack containing licorice shoelaces. Violet gives him the money.
Help me down?
Help you down.
Violet jumps off her stool and exits. Mary, watching, sticks out her tongue as she passes. George and Mary are at the fountain.
Made up your mind yet?
I'll take chocolate.
George put ice cream in a dish.
With coconuts?
I don't like coconuts.
You don't like coconuts. Say, Brainless, do you know where coconuts come from? Look at here, from Tahiti, Fiji Islands, the Coral Sea.
He pulls a magazine from his pocket and shows it to her.
A new magazine? I never saw it before.
Of course you never. Only us explorers can get it. I've been nominated for membership in the National Geographic Society.
He leans down to finish scooping out the ice cream, his deaf ear toward her. She leans over, speaking softly. Mary whispers,
Is this the ear you can't hear on? George Bailey, I'll love you till the day you die.
He draws back quickly and looks down, terrified at what she has said. Close shot of George and Mary.
I'm going out exploring someday. You watch. And I'm going to have a couple harems, maybe 3 or 4 wives. Wait and see.
He turns back to the cash register, whistling. Another takes in the entrance to the room at the end of the fountain. Gower comes to the entrance. He is bleary-eyed, unshaven, chewing an old unlit cigar. His manner is gruff and mean. It is evident he has been drinking.
George? George?
Yes, sir.
You're not paid to be a canary.
No, sir.
George turns back to the cash register when he notices an open telegraph on the shelf. He's about to toss it aside when he starts to read it. Insert the telegram. It reads, "We regret to inform you that your son, Robert, died very suddenly this morning of influenza. Stop. Everything possible was done for his comfort. Stop. We await instructions from you. Edward Mellington, President, Hammerton College." Back to shot. George puts the telegram down. A goodness of heart expresses itself in his desire to do something for Gower. He gives the ice cream to Mary without comment and sidles back toward Gower. Interior prescription room of drugstore, day. Close shot. Gower, drunk, is intent on putting some capsules into a box.
Mr. Gower, do you want something? Anything?
No.
Anything I can do back here?
No.
George looks curiously at Gower, realizing he is quite drunk. Gower fumbles and drops some of the capsules to the floor. We see them on the floor at their feet. Back to George and Gower.
I'll get them, sir.
He picks up the capsules, puts them in the box. Gower waves George aside, takes his old wet cigar, shoves it in his mouth, sits in an old chair in the background. George turns a bottle around from which Gower has taken the powder for the capsules. Its label reads poison. George is horrified.
Take these capsules over to Mrs. Blaine. She's waiting for them.
George picks up the capsule box, not knowing what to do or say. His eyes go harassed to the bottle labeled poison. George's fingers fumble.
Yes, sir. They have diphtheria there, haven't they, sir?
Gower stares moodily ahead, sucking a cigar. George turns to him, to the box in his hand.
Is it a charge, sir?
Yes, charge.
Mr. Gower, I think...
Get going.
Yes, sir.
Interior drugstore, day, medium shot. George comes out into the main room. As he puts his cap on, he sees a sweet Caporal's ad, which says, "Ask Dad, he knows." Back to shot with an inspiration. George dashes out the door and down the street. Mary follows him with her eyes. Exterior shot, day. George runs down the street till he comes to the Bailey Building and Loan Association building. He stops. Potter's carriage is waiting at the entrance. He runs up the stairs. Interior of the outer office. The offices are ancient and a bit side. There's a counter with the grill. Looks like a bank. Before a door marked Peter Bailey, private. George's Uncle Billy stands, obviously trying to hear what is going on inside. He is good-humored and of about 50 in shirt sleeves. With him at the door, also listening, are cousin Tilly Bailey, a waspish-looking woman who is the telephone operator, and cousin Eustace Clerk. The office vibrates with an aura of crisis as George enters, proceeds to his father's office. We see Uncle Billy listening at the door. As George is about to enter his father's office, Uncle Billy grabs him by the arm.
Avast there, Captain Cook. Where are you heading?
Gotta see Pop, Uncle Billy.
Some other time, George?
It's important.
There's a squall in there that's shaping up into a storm.
During the foregoing, cousin Tilly has answered the telephone, and now she calls out,
Uncle Billy, telephone.
Who is it?
It's the bank examiner.
Close up. Uncle Billy's left hand, there are pieces tied around two of his fingers, meant to remind him of things he has to do. Back to Billy looking at his hand.
Bank examiner. I should have called him yesterday. Switch it inside.
He enters a door marked William Billy, private. George stands undecided among of crisis in the affairs, but more keenly aware of his personal crisis. He opens the door to his father's office. And George's father is seated behind his desk, nervously drawing swirls on a pad. He looks tired and worried. He's a gentleman in his 40s, an idealist, stubborn only for other people's rights. Nearby, in a throne-like wheelchair, behind which stands the goon, who furnishes the motive power, sits Henry F. Potter, his squarish derby hat on his head. The following dialogue is fast and heated, direction note, as though the argument has been in process for some time.
I'm not crying, Mr. Potter.
Well, you're begging, and that's a whole lot worse.
All I'm asking is 30 days more. Just a minute, son. Just 30 days, 30 short days. I'll dig up that 5,000 somehow.
Shove me up.
Goon pushes his wheelchair closer to the desk.
Pop!
Have you put any real pressure on those people of yours to pay those mortgages?
Times are bad, Mr. Potter. A lot of these people are out of work.
Then foreclose.
I can't do that. These families have children.
Medium shot, Potter and Bailey.
Pop!
They're not my children.
But they're somebody's children.
Are you running a business or a charity ward?
Well, all right, but...
Not with my money.
Close shot, Potter and Bailey.
Mr. Potter, What makes you such a hard-skulled character? You have no family, no children. You can't begin to spend all the money you've got.
So I suppose I should give it to miserable failures like you and that idiot brother of yours to spin for me.
George cannot listen to such libel about his father. He comes in around the front of the desk.
He's not a failure. You can't say that about my father.
George,
You're not. You're the biggest man in town.
run along, George.
He pushes George toward the door.
Bigger than him.
As George passes Potter's wheelchair, he pushes the old man's shoulder. The goon puts out a restraining hand.
Bigger than anybody.
George proceeds toward the door with his father's hand on his shoulder. As they go,
Gives you an idea of the Baileys.
interior outer office building of Building and Loan, day, close shot, George and his father at the door.
Don't let him say that about you, Pop.
All right, son, thanks. I'll talk to you tonight.
Bailey closes the door on George and turns back to Potter. George stands outside the door with capsules in his hand, wiped to back to drugstore. Interior back room, Gower's drugstore, day, close shot. Gower talking on the telephone. George stands in the doorway.
Why, that medicine should have been there an hour ago. I'll be over in 5 minutes, Mrs. Blaine.
He hangs up the phone and turns to George.
Where's Mrs. Blaine's box of capsules?
Grabs George by the shirt, drags him into the back room.
Capsules?
Did you hear what I said?
Yes, sir.
Gower starts hitting George about the head with his open hands. George tries to protect himself as best he can.
What kind of tricks are you playing anyway? Why don't you live with him right away? Don't you know that boy's very sick?
You're hurting my sore ear.
Interior drugstore. Mary is still seated at the soda fountain. Each time she hears George being slapped, she winces. Close shot of George Gower.
Mr. Gower, you don't know what you're doing. You put something wrong in those capsules. I know you're unhappy. You got that telegram and you're upset. You put something bad in those capsules. It wasn't your fault, Mr. Gower.
George pulls out the little box in his pocket. Gower savagely rips it away from him, breathing heavily, staring at the boy venomously.
Just look and see what you did. Look at the bottle you took the powder from. It's poison, I tell you. It's poison. I know you feel bad and...
George falters, cupping his aching ear with a hand. Gower looks at the large brown bottle, which has not been replaced, on the shelf. He tears open the package, shakes the powder out of one of the capsules, cautiously tastes it, then abruptly throws the whole mess to the table and turns to look at George again. The boy is whimpering, hurt, frightened. Gower steps toward him.
Don't hurt my sore ear again.
But this time, Gower sweeps the boy to him in a hug and, sobbing hoarsely, crushes the boy in his embrace. George is crying too.
No, no, no.
Don't hurt my ear again.
Oh, George.
Mr. Gower, I won't ever tell anyone. I know what you're feeling. I won't ever tell a soul. I hope to die, I won't.
Oh, George.
Resolve to interior luggage shop, day 1928. It is late afternoon. A young man is looking over an assortment of luggage. Across the counter stands Joe Hepner, the proprietor of the store. He is showing a suitcase.
An overnight bag, genuine English cowhide, combination lock, fitted up with brushes, comb.
Nope.
No.
As camera moves closer to him, he turns and we get our first glimpse of George as a young man. We move to a close-up now.
No. Now look, George, look, I want a big one.
Suddenly in action, as George stands with his arms outstretched in illustration, the picture freezes and becomes a still over this whole frame shot. We hear voices from heaven.
What did you stop for?
I want you to take a good look at that face.
Who is it?
George Bailey.
You mean the kid that had his ears slapped back by the druggist?
That's the kid.
It's a good face. I like it. I like George Bailey. Tell me, did he ever tell anyone about the pills?
Not a soul.
Did he ever marry the girl? Did he ever go exploring?
Well, wait and see.
Close shot, the screen, the arrested close-up of George springs to life again.
Big. See, I don't want one for one night. I want something for 1,000 in one night with plenty of room for labels from Italy and Baghdad and Smartland and a great big one.
I see. A flying carpet, eh? I don't suppose you'd like this old second-hand job, would you?
He brings a large suitcase up from under the counter.
Oh, now you're talking. Gee whiz, I could use this as a raft in case the boat sunk. How much does this cost?
No charge.
That's my trick here, Joe. It sounds as if you said no charge.
That's right.
What's my name doing on it?
A little present for old man Gower. Came down and picked it out himself.
He did? What do you know about that? My old boss.
What are you selling? What boat you selling on?
I'm working on a cross on a cattle boat.
A cattle boat?
Okay, I like cows.
Wipe to interior Gower drugstore day. The place is practically the same, except now it is full of school kids having sodas. A jukebox and many little tables have been added. It has become the hangout of the local small fry. There are now 3 kids jerking sodas. Gower is a different man now, sober, shaven, and good-humored. He's behind the counter when George comes in. Gower's face lights up when he sees George.
Mr. Gower, thanks ever so much for the bag. It's just exactly what I wanted.
Oh, forget it.
Oh, it's wonderful.
Yeah, I hope you enjoy it.
George suddenly sees the old cigar lighter on the counter. He closes his eyes and makes a wish.
Oh, I wish I had $1 million.
As he snaps the lighter, the flame springs up.
Hot dog!
George shakes Gower's hand vigorously and exits. Exterior Main Street, Bedford Falls day. Pan as George crosses the street. Uncle Billy, Cousin Tilly, and Cousin Eustace are coming out of the second floor, or leaning out of the second floor window of the building and loan offices.
Vast there, Captain Cook. You got your sea legs yet?
Parlez-vous français? Hey, send us some of them picture postcards, will you, George?
Hey, George, don't take any plugged nickels.
Hey, George, your suitcase is leaking.
George waves up at them and continues on across the street. As George crosses the street, he spots Ernie in his cab and Bert the motor cop parked alongside.
Hey, Ernie!
Hiya, George.
Hi, Bert.
George?
Ernie, I'm a rich tourist today. How about driving me home in style?
Bert opens the door of the cab and puts George's suitcase inside.
Sure, Your Highness. Hop in, and for the carriage trade, I puts on my hat.
As George is about to enter the cab, he stops suddenly as he sees it. Now, obviously, a little sex machine come toward him. Her walk and figure would stop anybody. She gives him a sultry look. Reverse angle, the 3 men by the cab, but including Violet.
Good afternoon, Mr. Bailey.
Hello, Violet. Hey, you look good. That's some dress you got on there.
She reacts to this.
Oh, this old thing? Why, I only wear it when I don't care how I look.
Camera pans with male gaze as Violet swings on down the sidewalk. As Violet goes by, George and Bert raise their heads above the top of the cab. On Violet's back, as she goes, she crosses the street. An elderly man turns to look at her and is almost hit by a car that pulls up with screeching brakes.
Luga!
Ernie sticks his head out from the driver's seat.
How would you like?
Yes.
Want to come along, Bert? We'll show you the town.
Bert looks at his watch, then takes another look at Violet's retreating figure. No, thanks. Think I'll go home and see what the wife's doing.
Family man, huh?
Dissolve to interior Bailey dining room, night. Medium shot, Pop Bailey is sitting at the dinner table. Mrs. Bailey and Annie, the cook, look toward the vibrating ceiling. There are sounds of terrific banging and scuffling upstairs. Annie pounds on the ceiling with a broom.
George! Harry! You're shaking the house down. Stop it!
Oh, let him alone. I wish I was up there with him.
Harry'll tear his new suit. George!
Mrs. Bailey is calling up the stairs.
That's why all children should be girls.
But girls, there wouldn't be any. Oh, well, never mind. George, Harry, come on down to dinner this minute. Everything's getting cold and you know we're waiting for you.
Okay, Mom.
She goes up the stairs. Pop is smiling and poking his plate. A commotion is heard on the stairs, the boys imitating fanfare music. Down they come, holding their mother high between them on their hands. They bring her into the dining room and deposit her gracefully into Pop's lap.
Da-da-da, here's a present for you, Pop.
Pop kisses her. Mother gives Pop a quick hug, then turns with all the wrath she can muster on the two boys.
Oh, you two idiots. George, sit down and have dinner.
I've eaten.
Well, aren't you going to finish dressing for your graduation party? Look at you.
I don't care. It's George's tux.
Annie crosses the room holding her broom. Harry reaches out for her.
If you lay a hand on me, I'll hit you with this broom.
Annie, I'm in love with you. There's a moon out tonight.
As he pushes her through the kitchen door, he slaps her fanny. She screams. The noise is cut off. That was her. George and his mother sit down at the table.
Boy, oh boy, oh boy. My last meal at the Old Bailey boarding house.
Oh, my lands, my blood pressure.
Close shot on Harry. Sticks his head through the kitchen door.
Pop, can I have the car? I'm going to take over a lot of plates and things.
What plates?
Oh, Mom, I'm the chairman of the Eats Committee, and we only need a couple of dozen.
Oh, no, you don't, Harry. Not my best Haviland.
She follows Harry into the kitchen, leaving Pop and George. As she goes,
Oh, let him have the plates, Mother.
George and his father eating at the table. There's a great similarity and a great understanding between them.
Hope you have a good trip, George. Uncle Billy and I are going to miss you.
Yeah, I'm gonna miss you too, Pop. What's the matter? You look tired.
Oh, I had another tussle with Potter today.
Oh,
I thought when we put him on the board of directors, he'd ease up on us a little bit.
I wonder what's eating that old money-grubbing buzzard anyway.
Well, he's a sick man, frustrated and sick in his mind, sick in his soul, if he has one. Hates everybody that has anything that he can't have. Hates us mostly, I guess.
Median shot of the living room. Harry and his mother come out of the kitchen, Harry carrying a pie in each hand and balancing one on his head. Camera pans with them as they cross.
Gangway, gangway. So long, Pop.
So long, son.
Got a match?
Very funny. Very funny.
Oh, put those things in the car and I'll get your tie and studs together.
Okay, Mom. You coming later? You coming later, George?
What do you mean? Be bored to death?
Couldn't want a better death. Lots of pretty girls. We're going to use the new floor of yours tonight, too.
Oh, I hope it works.
No gin tonight, son.
No, Pop, just a little.
No, son, not one drop.
Close shot of George and Pop at the table. Annie comes in with some dishes.
Boys and girls and music. What do they need, gin?
She exits.
Father, did I act like that when I graduated from high school?
Pretty much. You know, George, wish we could send Harry to college with you. Your mother and I talked it over half the night.
We have that all figured out. You see, Harry will take my job at the building and loan, work there 4 years, then he'll go.
He's pretty young for that job.
Well, no younger than I was.
Maybe you were born older, George.
How's that?
I say maybe you were born older. I suppose you've decided what you're going to do when you get out of college.
Oh, well, you know what I've always talked about, build things, design new buildings, plan modern cities, all that stuff I was talking about.
Still after that?
No, I'll settle for half that in cash.
Annie comes in again from the kitchen.
Hope, but you wouldn't consider coming back to the building alone, would you?
Annie stops serving to hear his answer.
Well, Annie, why don't you draw up a chair? Then you'd be more comfortable and you could hear everything that's going on.
I would if I thought I heard anything worth listening to.
You would, huh?
She gives George a look and goes out onto the kitchen. Bailey smiles and turns to George.
I know it's too soon to talk about it.
Well, now, Pop, I couldn't. I couldn't face being cooped up for the rest of my life in a shabby little office.
He stops, realizing he's hurt his father.
Oh, I'm sorry, Pop. I didn't mean that remark, but this business of nickels and dimes and spending all your life trying to figure out how to save 3 cents on a length of pipe, I'd go crazy. Want to do something big, something important.
You know, George, I feel that in a small way we are doing something important, satisfying a fundamental urge. It's deep in the race for a man to want his own roof and walls and fireplace, and we're helping him get those things in our shabby little office.
I know, Dad. I wish I felt, but I've been hoarding pennies like a miser in order to. Most of my friends have already finished college. I just feel like if I don't get away, I'd bust.
Yes, you're right, son.
You see what I mean, don't you, Pop?
This town is no place for any man unless he's willing to crawl to Potter. You've got talent, son. You get yourself an education, then get out of here.
Pop, you want a shock? Think you're a great guy.
To cover his embarrassment, he looks toward the kitchen door and calls.
Oh, did you hear that, Annie?
Close shot of Annie listening through the glass in the door.
I heard it. About time one of you lunkheads said it.
Close shot of George and his father.
I'm gonna miss old Annie. Pop, I think I'll get dressed and go over to Harry's party.
Have a good time, son.
Wipe 2, interior high school gym night. At one end of the room, an orchestra is playing. George wends his way through dancing couples toward a supper table. He and Harry are carrying plates and pies.
Here you are.
Several of the boys take plates from him. George looks at them, feeling very grown up and out of place.
You know my kid brother, George. I'm going to put him through college.
Sam Wainwright comes in behind Harry, waggles his hands at his ears as he talks.
Here comes George. Hee-haw, hee-haw.
George swings around, delighted to hear a familiar face. Wider angle includes Sam and Marty Hatch. Sam is assured and breezy, wearing very collegiate clothes.
Oh, Sam Wainwright, how are you? And when did you get here?
Oh, this afternoon. I thought I'd give the kids a treat.
Old college graduate now, huh?
Yeah, old Joe College Wainwright, they call me. Well, freshman, looks like you're going to make it after all.
Yep.
Sam sees Harry and leaves George in the middle of a gesture.
Harry, you're the guy I want to see. Coach has heard all about you.
He has?
Yeah, he's followed every game, and his mouth's watering. He wants me to find out if you're going to come along with us.
Well, I gotta make some dough first.
Well, you better make it fast. We need great ends like you, not broken down old guys like this one.
George and Sam wiggle their fingers at their ears, saluting each other.
Hee-haw, hee-haw.
An elderly, fussy school principal comes over to George.
George, welcome back.
Hello, Mr. Partridge. How are you?
Putting a pool under this floor was a great idea. Saved us another building. Now, Harry, Sam, have a lot of fun. There's lots of stuff to eat and drink. Lots of pretty girls around.
Violet Bick comes into the scene and turns to face George. She is waving her dance program at him.
Hi, George.
Hello, Violet.
Hello. What am I bid?
Marty Hatch enters.
George,
Hiya, Marty. Well, it's old home week.
do me a favor, will you, George?
What's that?
Well, you remember my kid sister, Mary.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Mama wants you, Marty. Mama wants you, Marty. Remember?
Dance with her, will you?
Oh, me? Oh, well, I feel kind of funny enough already with all these kids.
Ah, come on. Be a sport. Just dance with her one time and you'll give her the thrill of a life.
Ah, go on.
Hey, sis.
Well, excuse me, Violet. Don't be long, Marty. I don't want to be a wet nurse for...
He stops suddenly as he sees Mary staring at her. Close up on her, she is standing talking to one of the boys, Freddie, a glass of punch in her hand. For the first time, she is wearing an evening gown, and she has gained assurance from the admiration of the boy with her. She turns around, and for the first time, she sees George. For a second, she loses her poise, staring at him.
And the next thing I know, some guy came up and tripped me. And that's the reason I came in fourth. If it hadn't been for that,
Close up on George, staring at Mary.
that race would have been a cinch. I tried to find out who it was later, but
Close up on Mary, still staring at George.
but I couldn't find out. Nobody'd ever tell you whoever it was because they'd be scared. They know.
Medium close up on Mary and Freddie. Marty comes into the scene, followed by George.
What kind of guy would you think that would do this kind of thing? You remember, George, this is Mary. Well, I'll be seeing you.
Well.
Now, to get back to my story, see?
Mary hands her punch cup to Freddie, and she and George start dancing.
Hey, this is my dance.
Oh, why don't you stop annoying people?
Well, I'm sorry. Hey!
Moving shot following George and Mary as they dance.
Well, hello.
Hello. You look at me as if you didn't know me.
Well, I don't.
You pass me almost every day in the street.
Me?
Uh-huh.
That was a little girl named Mary Hatch. That wasn't you.
A whistle is heard off screen and the music stops. Close up on Harry on the orchestra platform, whistle in hand.
Oh yes, oh yes, oh yes. The big Charleston contest. The prize? A genuine loving cup. Those not tapped by the judges will remain on the floor. Let's go.
Close up on George and Mary as the music starts and couples begin dancing once more. They look at each other.
I'm not very good at this.
Neither am I.
Okay, what can we lose?
They start their Charleston. We see a series of shots of various couples doing their routines, some good, some bad. Close up on Freddie leaning against the railing around the dance floor, looking daggers at George. Mickey, a young punk who has had one too many, is beside him.
What's the matter, Othello? Jealous? Did you know there's a swimming pool under this floor? And did you know that button behind you causes this floor to open up? And did you further know that George Bailey is dancing right over the crack? And I've got the keys.
Freddie needs no more. He takes the key, turns the switch. The floor begins to part in the middle, each half sliding under the bleacher seats. Pandemonium starts. Dancers begin to scream as they try to get off. Some are so engrossed in dancing, they continue at top speed. Teachers and elders start to scurry off. As the floor opens, it reveals an attractive lighted swimming pool. George and Mary are so busy dancing they don't notice the floor opening. Spotlights concentrate on them. They mistake the screams for cheers. Close shot on George and Mary dancing.
They're cheering us. We must be good.
The crowd watching George and Mary dancing, they move backward until finally they reach the edge of the floor and fall into the pool below. George and Mary still try to dance. The crowd on the edge cheering them. Some of the crowd leap into the pool. The principal, trying to restore order, finally clasps his hands like a diver and leaps in himself. Fade out, fade in on a tree-lined residential street, night. Medium close shot of George and Mary. The night is warm with a bright moon. George is dressed in a jersey sweater and an oversized football pants that keep trying to fall down. Mary is in an old white bathrobe. Each is carrying their wet clothes tied in a bundle. As they near the camera, we hear them singing.
Buffalo gals, can't you come out tonight? Can't you come out tonight? Can't you come out tonight? Buffalo gals, can't you come out tonight? And dance by the light of the moon. Dog, just like an organ.
Beautiful.
Camera moves with them as they proceed down the street.
I told Harry I thought I'd be bored to death. You should have seen the commotion in that locker room. I had to knock down 3 people to get this stuff we're wearing here. Here, let me hold that old wet dress of yours.
He takes the bundle of clothes from Mary. They stop and look at each other.
Do I look as funny as you do?
I guess I'm not quite the football type. You look wonderful. You know, if it wasn't me talking, I'd say you were the prettiest girl in town.
Well, why don't you say it?
Well, I don't know. Maybe I will say it. How old are you anyway?
18.
18. Why, was only last year you were 17.
Too young or too old?
Oh, no. Just right. Your age fits you. Yes, sir. You look a little older without your clothes on.
Mary stops. George, to cover his embarrassment, talks quickly.
Well, I mean, without a dress, you look older. I mean, younger. You look just.
In his confusion, George steps on the end of the belt of Mary's bathrobe, which is trailing along behind her. She gathers the robe around her.
Oh.
Sir, my train, please.
A pox upon me for a clumsy lout.
Picks up the belt and throws it over her arm.
Your caboose, my lady.
You may kiss my hand.
Holding her hand, George moves in closer to Mary.
Hey, Mary.
Mary turns away from him, singing Buffalo Gals.
As I was lumbering down the street.
George looks after her, then picks up a rock from the street.
Okay, then I'll throw a rock at the old Granville house.
Oh no, don't. I love that old house.
It is a weather-beaten, old-fashioned two-story house that once was no doubt resplendent.
No, you see, you make a wish, and then you try to break some glass. You got to be a pretty good shot nowadays, too.
Oh no, George, don't. It's full of old romance, that old place. I'd like to live in it.
In that place?
Uh-huh.
I wouldn't live in it as a ghost. Now watch. Right on the second floor there.
George hurls the rock at the house. We hear the sound of window breaking. Exterior front porch of house. We see a grumpy old man in his shirt sleeves in a rocking chair on the porch. He looks up as he hears the breaking glass. Close up on George and Mary.
What'd you wish, George?
Well, not just one wish. Oh, a hatful, Mary. I know what I'm going to do tomorrow and the next day and the next year and the year after that. I'm shaking the dust off this crummy little town off my feet, and I'm going to see the world. Italy, Greece, the Parthenon, the Colosseum. Then I'm going to come back here, go to college, and see what they know. Then I'm going to build things. I'm going to build airfields. I'm going to build skyscrapers 100 stories high. I'm going to build bridges a mile long.
As he talks, Mary has been listening intently. She finally stoops down and picks up a rock, weighting it in her hand.
Are you going to throw a rock?
We see the old deserted house. Mary throws a rock, and once more we hear the sound of breaking glass.
Hey, that's pretty good. What'd you wish for, Mary?
She looks at him provocatively, then turns and shuffles off down the street, singing as she goes. George hurries after her.
Buffalo gals, can't you come out tonight? Can't you come out?
Come out tonight. Can't you come out tonight? Buffalo gals, can't you come out tonight and dance by the light of the moon? What did you wish when you threw that rock?
Close porch, listening to George and Mary. They have stopped, now face one another.
Oh no.
Come on, tell me.
If I told you, it might not come true.
What is it you want, Mary? What do you want? You want the moon? Just say.
We see a shot of the moon, then back to George and Mary.
Say the word and I'll throw a lasso around it and pull it down. Hey, that's a pretty good idea. I'll give you the moon, Mary.
I'll take it. And then what?
Well, then you can swallow it, and it all dissolves, see? And the moonbeams would shoot out your fingers and your toes and the ends of your hair. Am I talking too much?
As George finishes talking, he jumps up out of the chair. The man, the guy on the porch does.
Yes, why don't you kiss her instead of talking her to death?
How's that?
I said, why don't you give her some tongue instead of talking her to death?
Want me to kiss her, huh?
Youth is wasted on the wrong people.
Man leaves the porch and goes into his house, slamming the front door.
Hey, hold on. Hey, mister, come on back here and I'll show you some kissing. I'll put some hair on the back of your head. What are you?
Mary runs off. George has once more been standing on the belt of her bathrobe, so as she goes, her robe comes off.
Mary?
He drops his bundle of clothes and picks up Mary's robe. He cannot see her anywhere.
Oh, okay, I give up. Where are you?
Close up of bush at edge of sidewalk, we see Mary's face peeking out from the leaves.
Over here in the hydrangea bushes.
George walks toward the bush.
Here you are. Catch.
About to throw her the robe when a thought strikes him.
Wait a minute. Oh, what am I doing? This is a very interesting situation.
Give me my robe, please.
Oh, man doesn't get in a situation like this every day.
I'd like to have my robe.
Not in Bedford Falls, anyway.
Mary thrashes out.
A gesundheit. This requires a little thought here.
George Bailey, give me my robe.
I've heard about things like this, but I've never.
Shame on you. I'm going to tell your mother on you.
Oh, mother's way up corner there.
I'll call the police.
Oh, they're way downtown. They'd be on my side, too.
I'm going to scream.
Maybe I could sell tickets. Let's see. No. The point is, in order to get this robe, well, I've got it. I'll make a deal with you, Mary.
Headlights flash into the scene, and the old Bailey automobile drives in with Harry at the wheel and Uncle Billy beside him.
George, come on home quick. Your father's had a stroke.
George throws Mary's robe over the bush and gets into the car.
Mary, I'm sorry. I've got to go.
Come on, George. Let's hurry.
Did you get a doctor?
Yes, Campbell's there now.
As the car drives off, Mary, now wearing the robe, rises up from the bush and follows the car with her eyes. Switch to the exterior of the Bailey Building and Loan. Close shot of the. There are about 12 directors seated around a long table. We have Dr. Campbell, a lawyer, an insurance agent, etc. And among them is Henry Potter, not Harry, his goon beside his wheelchair. Uncle Billy and George are seated among the directors. The chairman of the board is Dr. Campbell. They have folders and papers before them. Before each of the directors there are individual reports for them to study.
Well, I think that's all we'll need you for, George. I know you're anxious to make a train.
I have a taxi waiting downstairs.
I want the board to know that George gave up his trip to Europe to help straighten things out here these past few months. Good luck to you at school, George.
Thanks.
Now, we come to the real purpose of this meeting, to appoint a successor to our dear friend, Peter Bailey.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to get to my real purpose.
Wait just a minute now.
Wait for what? I claim this institution is not necessary for this town. Therefore, Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to dissolve this institution and turn its assets and liabilities over to the receiver.
George, you hear what that buzzard?
Mr. Chairman, it's too soon after Peter Bailey's death to discuss chloroforming the building alone.
But Peter Bailey died 3 months ago. I second Mr. Potter's motion.
Very well. In that case, I'll ask the two executive officers to withdraw.
Dr. Campbell rises from his seat. George and Uncle Billy start to collect their papers and leave the table.
But before you go, I'm sure the whole board wishes to express its deep sorrow at the passing of Peter Bailey.
Oh, thank you very much.
It was his faith and devotion that are responsible for this organization.
I'll go further than that. I'll say that to the public, Peter Bailey was the building and loan.
Everyone looks.
Oh, that's fine, Potter. Coming from you, consider that you probably drove him to his grave.
Peter Bailey was not a businessman. That's what killed him. Oh, I don't mean any disrespect to him, God rest his soul. He was a man of high ideals, so-called, but ideals without common sense can ruin this town. Now, you take this loan here to Ernie Bishop, that fellow that sits around all night in his brains in his taxi cab. Well, you know, I happen to know the bank turned down this loan. But he comes here and we're building him a house worth $5,000. Why?
George is at the door of the office holding his coat and papers ready to leave.
Well, I handled that, Mr. Potter. You have all the papers there. His salary, insurance. I can personally vouch for his character.
A friend of yours?
Yes, sir.
You see, if you shoot pool with some employee here, you can come and borrow money. What does that get us? A discontented, lazy rabble instead of a thrifty working class. And all because of you starry-eyed dreamers like Peter Bailey stir them up and fill their heads with a lot of impossible ideas. Now, I say...
George puts down his coat and comes around to the table incensed by what Potter is saying about his father.
Just a minute. Just a minute. Now, hold on, Mr. Potter. You're right when you say my father was no businessman. I know that. Why he ever started this cheap penny ante building a loan, I'll never know. But neither you nor anybody else can say anything against his character, because his whole life was, what, in the 25 years since he and Uncle Billy started this thing, he never once thought of himself. Isn't that right, Uncle Billy? He didn't save enough money to send Harry to school, let alone me. But he did help a few people get out of your slums, Mr. Potter. And what's wrong with that? Why, here, you're all businessmen here. Doesn't it make them better citizens? Doesn't it make them better customers? You said, what did you say a minute ago? They had to save their money before they ought to think of a decent home. Wait for what? Till their children grow up and leave them? Until they're so old and broken down that do you know how long it takes a working man to save $5,000? Just remember this, Mr. Potter, that this rabble you're talking about, they do most of the working and paying and living and dying in this community. Is it too much to have them work and pay and live and die in a couple of decent rooms and a bath? Anyway, my father didn't think so. People were human beings to him. But to you, a warped, frustrated old man, to you, they're just cattle. Well, in my book, he died a much richer man than you'll ever be.
Not interested in your book. I'm interested in the building and loan.
I know very well what you're talking about. Talking about something you can't get your fingers on, and it's galling you. That's what you're talking about, I know. Well, I've said too much. I know you're the board here. You do what you want with this thing. There's just one more thing, though. This town needs this measly one-horse institution, if only to have some place where people can come without crawling a Potter. Come on, Uncle Billy.
George leaves the room, followed by the jubilant Uncle Billy. Potter's face is grim with hatred. The frustrated old man remark was gall in his veins.
Sentimental hogwash. I want my motion.
He is interrupted by a babble of talk as the directors take up the argument.
My motion.
George, visibly shaken, is busy with his bag, his papers. He is worried about the outcome of the meeting. Dissolving the building and loan would alter his plans. Uncle Billy follows him around, chattering.
Boy, oh boy, that was telling him, George, old boy, you shut his big mouth. You should have heard him.
What happened? We heard a lot of yelling.
Well, we're being voted out of business after 25 years. Easy come, easy go.
Oh, here it is. Help wanted female.
Ernie is in the doorway.
You still want me to hang around, George?
Yeah, I'll be right down.
Hey, you'll miss the train. You're a week late for school already. Go on.
I wonder what's going on in there.
Oh, never mind. Don't worry about that. They're putting us out of business. So what? I could get another job. I'm only 55.
56.
Go on. Hey, look, you gave up your boat trip. Now you don't want to miss college too, do you?
Dr. Campbell comes running out, all excited.
George, they've voted Potter down. They want to keep it going.
Cousin Eustace, Cousin Tilly, and Uncle Billy cheer wildly. Dr. Campbell and George shake hands.
One condition, only one condition.
Oh, what's that?
That's the best part of it. They've appointed George here as executive secretary to take his father's place.
Oh, no. But Uncle Billy,
You can keep him on. That's all right. As secretary, you can hire anyone you
Dr.
like.
Campbell. Dr. Campbell, now let's get this thing straight. I'm leaving. I'm leaving right now. I'm going to school. This is my last chance. Uncle Billy here, he's your man.
But George, they'll vote with Potter. Otherwise.
Lap dissolve, exterior sky, night. The same stars we saw in the opening sequence are once more twinkling as we hear the voices from heaven.
I know. He didn't go.
That's right. Not only that, but he gave his school money to his brother Harry and sent him to college. Harry became a football star, made second team All-American.
Yes, but what happened to George?
Lap dissolved to an exterior railroad station day 4 years later. Characteristic activity, a number of people waiting for the train. Uncle Billy is seated on a baggage wagon eating peanuts as George paces up and down in front of him.
George got 4 years older, waiting for Harry to come back and take over the building and loan.
Oh, there are plenty of jobs around for somebody that likes to travel. Look at this. There. Venezuela oil fields wanted. Man with construction experience. Here's a Yukon right here. Wanted man with engineering experience.
Whistle of approaching train is heard. Woo, woo.
Oh, there she blows. You know what the three most exciting sounds in the world are?
Breakfast is served, lunch is served, dinner.
No. Anchor chains, plane motors, train whistles.
Peanut?
Wipe 2, exterior train day. The train comes to a stop and Harry is among the first to get off, followed by an attractive girl about the same age. George rushes into the shot, and as the brothers embrace.
Oh, there's the professor now. Old Professor Phi Beta Kappa Bailey, All-American.
Well, if it isn't old geographic George Explorer Bailey. What? No husky dogs? No sled? Uncle Billy, you haven't changed a bit.
Nobody ever changes around here. You know that.
Oh, I'm glad to see you.
Say, where's Mother?
Oh, she's home cooking the fatted calf. Come on, let's go.
Oh, wait a minute.
The group, including Ruth Dakin, this is the young lady who came off the train with Harry. In the excitement of greeting, she has been momentarily forgotten. She stands smiling, waiting.
Hello.
How do you do?
Ruth Dakin.
Ruth Dakin Bailey, if you don't mind.
George and Uncle Billy stare astounded.
Huh?
Well, I wired you that I had a surprise. Here she is. Meet the wife.
George is thunderstruck. He takes her hand.
Well, what do you know? Wife!
Well, how do you do? Congratulations. Congratulations. What am I doing?
He kisses Ruth. Camera moves with them down the platform.
Harry, why didn't you tell somebody? What's a pretty girl like you doing marrying this two-headed brother of mine?
Well, I'll tell you, it's purely mercenary. My father offered him a job.
George stops with a sinking feeling. Uncle Billy and Ruth continue out of shot. Harry stops with George.
Oh, he gets you and a job? Well, Harry's cup runneth over.
George, about that job. Ruth spoke out of turn. I never said I'd take it. You've been holding the bag here for 4 years and, well, I won't let you down, George. I would like to... Oh, wait a minute. I forgot the bags. I'll be right back.
He runs out of the shot, George watching him. George is slowly moving after Uncle Billy and Ruth. He is thinking deeply.
It was a surprise to me. This is the new Mrs. Bailey, my nephew's wife. Old friend of the family.
Oh, of course. I've heard him speak of you.
And I want to tell you, we're going to give the biggest party this town has ever saw.
Camera moves with George as he comes into the scene. Ruth detaches herself from the group and offers George some popcorn.
Here, have some popcorn. George, George, George. That's all Harry ever talks about.
Ruth, about this job.
Oh, well, my father owns a glass factory in Buffalo. He wants to get Harry started in the research business.
Is it a good job?
Oh, yes, very. Not much money, but a good future, you know. Harry's a genius at research. My father fell in love with him.
And you did too.
Nod, smiling. Exterior front porch, Bailey home night. Cousin Eustace is taking a photograph of the family group assembled on the porch. Flashbulbs go off. The group breaks up. The front porch, the group enters the front porch of the house, leaving George and Billy on the porch. The latter is tipsy. He feels very high.
Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. I feel so good. I can spit in Potter's eye. I think I will. What do you say, huh? Oh, maybe I'd better go home.
He looks around for his hat, which is on his head.
Where's my hat? Where's my...
George takes the hat from Billy's head and hands it to him.
Oh, thank you, George. Which one is mine?
Well, the middle one.
Oh, thank you, George. Oh, boy, oh, boy. Now, look, if you'll point me in the right direction, would you do that, George?
All right, right down here.
They descend the porch steps. George turns his uncle around and heads him down the street.
Old building in Lone Powell.
Now, you just turn this way and go right, straight down.
That way, huh?
He staggers out of the scene. As George turns away, we hear Uncle Billy singing My Wild Irish Rose. There's a crash. There's a crash. And then...
I'm all right. I'm all right. Nobody will worry about me. The sweetest flower that grows.
Exterior house night. George is standing at the garden gate, takes some travel folders from his pocket, looks at them, throws them away. He is obviously disturbed about the latest turn of events. His mother comes out of the house and kisses him.
Hello, Mom.
That's for nothing. How do you like her?
She nods toward the house where Harry and Ruth, among the crowd of other couples, are dancing, and a crowd can be seen through the front door.
Oh, she's swell.
Looks like she can keep Harry on his toes.
Keep him out of Bedford Falls, anyway.
Well, do you know that Mary Hatch is back in town?
Uh-huh.
Came back 3 days ago. Nice girl, Mary. Find that she can help you find the answers, George. Oh, stop that grunting. Can you give me one good reason why you shouldn't call on Mary?
Sure. Sam Wainwright. Yes, Sam's crazy about Mary.
Well, she's not crazy about him.
Well, how do you know? Did she discuss it with you?
No.
Well, then how do you know?
Well, I got eyes, haven't I? Why, she lights up like a firefly whenever you're around.
Oh.
And besides, Sam Wainwright's away in New York, and you're here in Bedford Falls.
And all's fair in love and war.
Oh, I don't know about war.
Mother, you know, I can see right through you. Right back to your back collar button. Trying to get rid of me, huh?
Uh-huh.
They kiss. Mrs. Bailey puts George's hat on his head.
Well, here's your hat. What's your hurry? All right, Mother, old building and loan pal. I think I'll go out and find a girl and do a little passionate necking.
Oh, George.
Now, if you'll just point me in the right direction, this direction. Good night, Ms. Bailey.
Wipe to exterior Main Street, Bedford Falls night. George is standing in the middle of the street, hands in his pockets. As a girl passes, he turns and watches her. He is obviously undecided as to what he wants to do. Exterior Violet Bick's beauty shop night. Violet is locking up for the night. A couple of men are crowding around her, each one bent on taking her out. There's laughter, kidding and pawing. She looks up and sees George standing there.
Excuse me.
Now, wait a minute.
I think I got a date. Stick around, fellas, just in case, huh?
We'll be waiting here for you, baby.
Camera pans with Violet as she crosses the street to George. Medium shot of them.
Hello, Georgie Porgy.
Hello, Vi.
He looks her over. Violet takes her beauty shop seriously, and she's an eyeful. She senses the fact that George is far from immune to her attractions. She links her arm in his and continues on down the street with him.
What gives?
Nothing.
Where you going?
Oh, I'll probably end up down at the library.
They stop and face one another.
George, don't you ever get tired of just reading about things?
Her eyes are seductive and guileful as she looks at him. He is silent for a moment, then blurts out,
Yes. Oh, what are you doing tonight?
Not a thing.
Are you game, Vi? Let's make a night of it.
Oh, I'd love it, Georgie. What do we do?
Well, let's go out in the fields and take off our shoes and walk through the grass.
Huh?
And then we could go up to the falls. It's beautiful up there in the moonlight, and there's a green pool up there, and we can swim in it. And we can climb Mount Bedford and smell the pines and watch the sunrise against the peaks, and we'll stay the whole night up there, and everybody will be talking, and there'll be a terrific scandal.
George, have you gone crazy? Walking the grass in my bare feet? Why, it's 10 miles up to Mount Bedford.
Shh.
You think just because you?
By this time, a small crowd is collected to watch the above scene. Violet is furious and talking in a loud voice, and George is trying to quiet her. Finally,
Okay, just forget about the whole thing.
as George stalks off, the crowd breaks into laughter. And we wipe to exterior residential street night. Close shot. George is walking slowly past the Hatch home. He stares meditatively at the simple dwelling, then starts walking ahead, but after a few steps, turns around and starts back. Turns and starts and turns and starts. Interior Hatch home night. Close shot. Mary is looking out the window, watching George walk back and forth.
What are you doing? Picnic?
Startled and looks up.
Hello, Mary. I just happened to be passing by.
Yeah, so I noticed. Have you made up your mind?
How's that?
Have you made up your mind
About what?
about coming in? Your mother just phoned and said you were on your way over to pay me a visit.
Exterior street night. George looks surprised at this.
My mother just called you? Well, how did she know?
Didn't you tell her?
I didn't tell anybody. I just went for a walk, and I happened to be passing by.
Mary has disappeared from the window.
What do you... Went for a walk, eh? That's all?
Mary is running down the stairs.
I'll be downstairs, Mother.
All right, dear.
Mary looks in a mirror at the bottom of the stairs and fixes her hair. She's plainly excited. She runs into the parlor, puts a sketch on an easel. It's a caricature of George throwing a lasso around the moon. Mary runs into the hall, opens the phonograph, puts on Buffalo Gals, then opens the front door and stands there waiting for George. George struggles with the gate, finally kicks it open, starts up the path toward her.
Well, are you coming in or aren't you?
Well, I'll come in for a minute, but I didn't tell anybody I was coming here.
Mm.
They're in the entrance hall.
When did you get back?
Tuesday.
Where did you get that dress?
Do you like it?
It's all right. I thought you'd go back to New York like Sam and Inge and the rest of them.
Oh, I worked there for a couple of vacations, but I don't know. I guess I was homesick.
Homesick? For Bedford Falls?
Yes, and my family and, everything. Would you like to sit down?
They go into the parlor.
All right. For a minute. I still can't understand it, though. You know, I didn't tell anybody I was coming here.
Well, would you rather leave?
No, I don't want to be rude.
Well, then sit down.
George sees the cartoon on the easel, looks at it.
Some joke, huh?
George and Mary sit on the divan. He is uncomfortable, and she tries desperately to keep the conversation alive.
Yeah, well, I see it still smells like pine needles in here.
Thank you.
There's silence. Then Mary joins in singing with the phonograph record, which has been playing through all of this.
Oh, what's the matter? Oh, yeah, yeah.
Looks at his watch as though to leave.
Well, I
It was nice about your brother Harry and Ruth, wasn't it?
oh, yeah, it's all right.
Don't you like her?
Of course I like her. She's a peach.
Oh, it's just marriage in general you're not enthusiastic about, huh?
No, marriage is all right for Harry and Marty and Sam and you.
Mrs. Hatch in a bathrobe with hair and curlers is leaning over the banister as she calls.
Mary! Mary!
There we see George and Mary seated on the divan.
Who's down there with you?
It's George Bailey, Mother.
George Bailey? What's he want?
I don't know. What do you want?
Me? Not a thing. I just came in here to get warm.
He's making violent love to me, Mother.
George is gassed.
You tell him to go right back home, and don't you leave the house either. Sam Wainwright promised to call you from New York tonight.
Oh, but your mother needn't. You know, I didn't come here to.
What did you come here for?
I don't know. You tell me. You're supposed to be the one that has all the answers. You tell me.
Well, why don't you just go home?
Oh, that's where I'm going. I don't know why I came here in the first place. Good night.
Good night.
As George leaves, the telephone in the hall starts ringing.
Mary! Mary! It's the telephone! It's Sam!
I'll get it.
As Mary comes into the hall, she stops by the phonograph, which is still playing Buffalo Gals, takes the record off with a jerk and smashes it against the machine. The phone is still ringing.
Mary, he's waiting!
Hello?
Mary picks up the phone. George comes in from the front porch.
Oh, I forgot my hat.
Hee-haw! Hello, Sam. How are you?
Oh, great. Gee, it's good to hear your voice again.
George just stopped hat in hand to hear the first greetings.
Oh, well, that's awfully sweet of you, Sam. There's an old friend of yours here, George Bailey.
You mean old Mossback George?
Yes, old Mossback George.
Hee-haw! Put him on.
Wait a minute, I'll call him. George!
He doesn't want to speak to George, you idiot!
He does so. He asked for him. George! George, Sam wants to speak to you.
She hands the phone to George.
Hello, Sam.
Sam is seating at his desk while a couple of his friends are nearby with highballs in their hands.
Well, George Baileyovsky. Hey, a fine pal you are. What are you trying to do? Steal my girl?
Oh, what do you mean? Nobody's trying to steal your girl. Here's Mary.
Now, wait a minute. I want to talk to both of you. Tell Mary to get on the extension.
Here, you take it. You tell him.
Mother's on the extension.
As Mrs. Hatch hears this, she hastily hangs up the extension phone on which she has been listening.
We can both hear. Come here.
Mary takes the telephone from George, holds it so that, of necessity, George's cheek is almost against hers. He is very conscious of her proximity.
We're listening, Sam.
I have a big deal coming up that's going to make us all rich. George, remember that night in Martini's bar when you told me you read someplace about making plastics out of soybeans?
Huh? Yeah. Soybeans. Yeah.
Well, Dad snapped up the idea. He's got to build a factory outside of Rochester. How do you like that?
Mary's watching George interestedly. George is very conscious of her close to him.
Rochester? Well, why Rochester?
Well, why not? Can't you think of anything better?
Oh, I don't know. Why not right here? You remember that old tool and machinery works? You tell your father he can get that for a song and all the labor he wants, too. Half the town was thrown out of work when they closed down.
That's so. I'll tell him, hey, that sounds great. Oh, baby, I knew you'd come through. Now, here's the point, Mary. Mary, you're in on this too. Now, listen. Have you got any money?
Money? Yeah. Well, a little.
Well, now listen. I want you to put every cent you got into our stock, you hear? And George, I may have a job for you. That is, unless you're still married to that broken down building alone. This is the biggest thing since radio, baby. And I'm letting you in on the ground floor. Oh, Mary, Mary.
I'm here.
Would you tell that guy I'm giving him the chance of a lifetime, you hear? The chance of a lifetime.
Mary listens. She turns to look at George, her lips almost on his.
He says it's a chance of a lifetime.
George can stand it no longer. He drops the phone with a crash, grabs Mary by the shoulders, and shakes her. Mary begins to
Now
cry.
you listen to me. I don't want any plastics. I don't want any ground floors. I don't want to get married ever to anyone. You don't understand that. I don't do what I want to do, and you're
Pulls her to him in a fierce embrace. The two were meant for each other, find themselves in tearful ecstasy.
Oh, Mary,
George.
Mary.
Mrs. Hatch is at the top of the stairs. She practically faints at what she sees. Wipe to cousin Tilly's face, filling the screen as she cries.
Here they come!
Camera pulls back, and we hear the sound of the wedding march. People are crowded into rooms, family, friends, neighbors, din of conversation. Mary and George appear at the top of the stairs in traveling clothes with Mrs. Hatch red-eyed behind them. Mary throws her bouquet, which is caught by Violet. They come out onto the porch. It's raining. Nevertheless, cousin Eustace has his camera set up and is taking pictures of the group. Mary and George dodge through the rain and a shower of rice, get in a taxi cab, which pulls away. Close shot of Mrs. Bailey and Annie, the maid.
Oh, Mom, you're on mute.
If any of you see a stranger around here, it's me. I don't know where we are.
First Harry and now George. Annie, we're just a couple of old maids now.
You speak for yourself, Missy.
Interior, Ernie's cab day. Close shot of George, Mary, and Ernie. George and Mary are in each other's arms.
If either of you two here see a stranger around here, it's me.
Hey, look, somebody's driving this cab.
Ernie reaches over, hands George a bottle of champagne done up in gift wrap.
Bert the cop sent this over. He said to float away to happy land on the bubbles.
Oh, look at this. Champagne.
Good old Bert.
By the way, where are you two going on this here honeymoon?
Where are we going? Oh, look at this. There's this kitty, Ernie. Here, come on, count it, Mary.
Like a bootlegger's wife. Look.
You know what we're going to do? We're going to shoot the works. A whole week in New York, a whole week in Bermuda, the highest hotels, the oldest champagne, the richest caviar, the hottest music, and the prettiest wife.
Yo, that does it. Then what?
Then what, honey?
After that, who cares?
Well, that does it. You come here.
Cab passes the bank and Ernie sees a crowd of people around the door. He stops the cab. Scurrying people under umbrellas, swarming around the bank doors. Panic is in the air. Oh, it's 1929. Attendants are trying to close down. Several people come running past the cab. Close shot of George, Mary, and Ernie.
Don't look now, but there's something funny going on there at the bank, George. I've never seen one, but that's got all the earmarks of a run.
Hey, Arnie, if you got any money in the bank, you best hurry.
George, let's not stop. Let's go.
George gets out of the cab and looks down the street.
Just a minute, dear.
George, please, let's not stop, George, please.
I'll be back in a minute, Mary.
George runs off up the street toward the building and loan. An iron grill blocks the street entrance to the building and loan. It has been locked. A crowd of men and women are waiting around the grill. They're simply dressed, to whom their savings are a matter of life and death. George comes in with an assumed cheerful manner. The people look at him silently, half shamefaced, but grimly determined on their rights. In their hearts, there is panic and fear.
Hello, everybody. Miss Thompson, how are you? Charlie, what's the matter here? Can't you get in?
No one answers. He quickly unlocks the grill door and pushes it open. Followed by the crowd, George runs upstairs and into the outer offices of the building and loan. George, followed by the silent people comes in. Uncle Billy is standing in the doorway to his private office taking a drink. He motions George to join him.
Now, what is this, Uncle Billy? A holiday?
George.
Points to George's office. He turns back cheerfully to the crowd.
Oh, come on in, everybody. That's right. Just come in.
Vaults over the counter.
Now, look, why don't you all sit down? There are a lot of seats over here. Just make yourselves at home.
George, can I see you for a minute?
People ignore George and remain standing in front of the teller's window. They all have their passbooks out. George hurries into his office where Uncle Billy is waiting for him. Interior of Billy's office.
Yeah. Why didn't you call me?
I just did, but they said you left. This is a pickle, George. This is a pickle.
All right, now what happened? How did it start?
How does anything like this ever start? All I know is the bank called our loan.
When?
About an hour ago. I had to hand it over all our cash.
All of it?
Every cent of it, and it still was less than we owe.
Holy mackerel.
And then I got scared, George, and closed the doors.
The whole town's gone crazy.
Telephone rings. Uncle Billy picks it up.
Yes, hello? George, it's Potter.
Hello?
George.
Potter is seated behind his desk. Go ahead.
George, there's a rumor around town that you've closed your doors. Is that true? Oh, well, very glad to hear that. George, are you all right? Do you need police?
Police? What for?
Well, mobs can get pretty ugly sometimes, you know. George, I'm going all out to help in this crisis. I've just guaranteed the bank sufficient funds to meet their needs. They'll close it for a week and then reopen.
He just took over the bank.
I may lose a fortune, but I'm willing to guarantee your people too. Just tell them to bring their shares over here, and Toby and I will pay them 50 cents on the dollar.
Oh, you never miss a trick, do you, Potter? Well, you're going to miss this one.
George bangs the receiver down and turns to meet Uncle Billy's anxious look.
You close your doors before 6 p.m., you will never reopen.
He realizes George has hung up and clicks the phone furiously. Back to George and Uncle Billy.
George, was it a nice wedding? Gosh, I wanted to be there.
Oh, yeah. You can take that off your finger now.
An ominous sound of angry voices comes from the other room. They exit from George's offices. Many people have crowded around the counter. Their muttering stops and they stand silent and grim.
Now, just remember that this thing isn't as black as it appears.
As crowds speak, as George speaks, sirens are heard passing in the street below.
I have some news for you, folks. I've just talked to Old Man Potter, and he's guaranteed cash payments at the bank. The bank's going to reopen next week.
But George, I got my money here. Well, did he guarantee this place?
Well, no, Charlie. I didn't even ask him. We don't need Potter over here.
Mary and Ernie have come into the room during the scene. Mary watches silently.
Well, I'll take mine now.
No, but you're thinking of this place all wrong. As if I had the money back in this safe. The money's not here. The money's in Joe's house and right next to yours, and in the Kennedy house, and Mrs. Macklin's house, and 100 others. And well, you're just lending them the money to build, and then they're going to pay it back to you as best they can. Now, what are you going to do? Foreclose on them?
I got $240 in here, and $242 isn't gonna break anybody.
Okay, Tom. All right. Here you are. You sign this, and you'll get your money in 60 days.
60 days?
Well, no, that's what you agreed to when you bought your shares.
There's a commotion at the outer doors. Randall comes in and makes his way to Tom.
Hey, Tom, did you get your money?
No.
Well, I did. Old Man Potter paid 50 cents on the dollar for every share you got.
What? 50 cents?
50 cents
on the dollar?
Yeah.
50
cents? Yeah, cash.
Well, what do you say?
Now, Tom, you have to stick to your original agreement. Now, give us 60 days on this.
Okay, Randall.
He starts out.
Are you going to Potter's?
Better to get half than nothing.
A few other people start for the door. Camera pans with George as he vaults over the counter, quickly speaking.
Tom Randall, now wait. Now listen to me. I beg of you not to do this thing. If Potter gets hold of this building and loan, there'll never be another decent house built in this town. He's already got charge of the bank. He's got charge of the bus line. He's got department stores, and now he's after us. Why? Well, it's very simple. We're cutting in on his business, and that's why. And because he wants to keep you living in the slums and paying the kind of rent he decides.
The people are still listening, but George is beginning to make an impression.
Joe, you lived in one of his houses, didn't you? Have you forgotten? Have you forgotten what he charged you for that broken down shack? Here, Ed, you remember last year when things weren't going so well and you couldn't make your payments. You didn't lose your house, did you? Did you think Potter would have let you keep it? Can't you understand what's happening here? Don't you see what's happening? Potter isn't selling, Potter's buying. And why? Because we're panicking and he's not. That's why he's picking up some bargains. No, we can get through this thing all right. We got to stick together though. We've got to have faith in each other.
But my husband hasn't worked in over a year, and I need money. How am I going to live until the bank opens?
I got doctor bills to pay.
I need cash.
Can't feed my kids on faith.
During the scene,
How much do you need?
George
How
jumps
much
over
do
the
you
counter.
need?
Hey, I got $2,000. Here's $2,000. This will tide us over till the bank reopens. All right, Tom, how much do you need?
$242.
Oh, Tom, just enough to tide you over till the bank reopens.
I'll take $242.
Oh, right. There you go.
That'll close my account.
Your account's still here. That's a loan.
Harry turns, slip through the crowd, followed by Ernie. George hands the $242 to Tom, speaks to Ed, the next in line.
Okay, all right. Ed?
I got $300 here, George.
Billy takes out his wallet, takes out all the cash he's got.
Oh, now, Ed, what will it take till the bank reopens? What do you need?
Well, I suppose $20.
$20. Now you're talking. Fine. Thanks, Ed. All right. Now, Mrs. Thompson, how much do you want?
But it's your own money, George.
Never mind about that. How much do you want?
I can get along with 20, all right.
$20.
And I'll sign a paper.
You don't have to sign anything. I know you'll pay it back when you can. That's okay. All right, Mrs. Davis.
Could I have $17.50?
$7. Bless your heart. Of course you can have it. You got 50 cents? $7.
Wipe 2. Outer office building and loan night. George, Uncle Billy, and Cousin Tilly are behind the counter, watching the minute hand on the clock on the wall as George counts off the seconds. Cousin Eustace is ready to close the door.
We're gonna make it, George. They'll never close us up today.
6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Bingo!
Cousin Eustace slams and locks the door and scurries around the counter to join the others.
We made it. Look, we're still in business. We got $2 left.
Uncle Billy takes a drink out of his bottle.
Well, let's have some of that. Get some glasses, Cousin Tilly. We're a couple of financial wizards.
Those Rockefellers.
Get a tray for these great, big, important simoleons.
We'll save them for seed. A toast.
They raise glasses.
A toast. A toast to Papa Dollar and Mama Dollar. And if you want the old building and loan to stay in business, you better have a family real quick.
I wish they were rabbits.
I wish they were too. Okay, let's put them in the safe and see what happens.
The four of them parade through the office. George puts the $2 in a safe. As George comes out.
Wedding cigars.
Oh, wedding. Oh, holy mackerel, I'm married. Where's Mary? Mary! Poor Mary. Look, I've got a train to catch. Well, the train's gone. I wonder if Ernie's still here with a taxi cab.
George rushes into his office to look out the window.
George, there's a call for you.
Look, well, will you get my wife on the phone? She's probably over at her mother's.
Mrs. Bailey is on the phone.
I don't want Mrs. Bailey. I want my wife, Mrs. Bailey. Oh, that's my wife. Here, I'll take it in here. Mary, hello. Listen, dear, I'm sorry. What? Come home. What home? 320 Sycamore. Well, whose home is that? The Waldorf Hotel, huh?
Wipe 2. Exterior Old Granville House. Night. You're on. It once had class, but hasn't been lived in for years. The rain is pouring down. A faint glow of light shows from bottom windows. George hurries into the scene. He stops to make sure it's the right house number before going up the steps. Bert and a man working in the rain sorting through travel posters.
Hey, this is the company's posters, and the company won't like this.
How'd you like to get a ticket next week? Haven't you any romance in you?
Do I have, but I got rid of it.
Liver pills? Who wants to see liver pills on their honeymoon? What? Romantic places, beautiful places, places George wants to go. A sharp whistle is heard. Ernie is leaning from the window.
Hey, Bert, here he comes.
Come on, we got up. He's coming.
Who?
The groom, idiot. Come on, get that ladder.
What are they, ducks?
Bert and the man are putting up travel posters to cover up broken windows. Get that ladder up here.
All right, all right.
Hurry up, hurry up, hurry up.
I'm hurrying.
George is approaching the front door of the house, on which a sign is hanging, Bridal Suite. Ernie looks out through the curtain covering the broken glass.
Hiya. Good evening, sir.
Ernie opens the door, revealing himself as a homemade butler. George.
Entree, Miss Monsieur, entree.
George enters. The house is carpetless, empty. A huge fire is burning in the fireplace. Near that, a collection of packing boxes are heaped together in the shape of a small table covered with a oilcloth. It is set for two. A bucket of ice and a champagne bottle sit on the table, as well as a bowl of caviar. Two small chickens are impaled on a spit over the fire. A phonograph is playing on the box, and a string from the phonograph is turning the chickens on the spit. Mary is standing near the fireplace, looking as pretty as any bride ever looked. She smiles at George. Ernie exits and closes the door.
Welcome home, Mr. Bailey.
Well, I'll be. Mary, where did you?
They rush into each other's arms and hold each other in ecstasy. Bert and Ernie, standing in the pouring rain, start singing, I love
you truly, truly.
Ernie, dear.
Oh, Mary.
Remember that night we broke the windows in this old house? This is what I wished for.
Darling, you're wonderful.
Bert and Ernie finish their song, and Ernie kisses Bert on the forehead. Bert slams Ernie's hat on his head. Fade to Slum Street, Bedford Falls, 2 years later. In front of one of the miserable shacks that lines the street are two vehicles. One is George Bailey's rickety car. The other is piled high with household goods. The Martini family is moving. Martini, his wife, and 4 kids, 2 to 10. George and Mary are helping them. About a dozen neighbors crowd around Martini and George, assisted by 3 of the kids carrying out the last of the furniture. Schultz calls out.
Martini, you rented a new house?
Rent? You hear what he say, Mr. Bailey?
Oh, what's that?
I own the house. Me, Mr. Martini. I own my own house. No more we live like pigs in this potter's field. Hurry, Maria.
Yes.
Come on. Bring the baby. Martini, I'll bring the kids in the car.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Bailey.
Mary gets in the front seat with the baby in her arms.
All right, kids, here, get in here. Now, get right up on the seat there. Get the goat.
Goat gets in the back seat with the kids.
Goodbye, everybody.
All in.
The rickety caravan starts off down the street to the cheers of the neighbors. Switch to Bailey Park, day, close shot. Welcome to Bailey Park. Camera pans to follows George's car and the old truck laden with furniture as they pass. We hear Martini's voice singing, "Oh, solo mio." Bailey Park is a district of new small houses, not all alike, but each individual. It has the promise, when built up, of being a pleasant little middle-class section. We are at Martini's new house. George and Mary are on the porch with the martinis lined up before them.
Mr. and Mrs. Martini, welcome home.
They cross themselves. Also in Bailey Park, Sam Wainwright is standing in front of his big black. He's the epitome of the successful up-and-coming businessman. His wife is very attractive, sophisticated, dripping with furs and jewels. Sam watches George across the street.
That old George, he's always making a speech. Hee-haw!
Sam Wainwright.
Oh, who cares? Bread that this house may never know hunger.
This is Martini
Salt. Salt that life may always have flavor.
And wine, that joy and prosperity may reign forever. Here enter the Martini Castle.
They cross themselves and shake hands. The kids enter, screams of delight. Mrs. Martini kisses. Meanwhile, Potter is seated in his wheelchair at his desk with his goon beside him. His rent collector, Reineman, is talking, pointing to maps spread out on his desk.
Look, Mr. Potter, it's no skin off of my nose. I'm just your little rent collector. But you can't laugh off this Bailey Park anymore. Look at it.
Buzzer is heard. Potter snaps on the dictaphone on his desk.
Congressman Blatz is here to see ya.
Oh, tell the congressman to wait. Go on.
15 years ago, a half-dozen houses stuck here and there. There's the old cemetery, squirrels, buttercups, daisies. Used to hunt rabbits there myself. Yes, rabbits. Look at it today. Dozens of the prettiest little homes you ever saw. 90% owned by suckers who used to pay rent to you. Your Potter's Field, my dear Mr. Employer, is becoming just that. And are the local yokels making with those David and Goliath wisecracks?
Oh, they are they? Even though they know the Baileys haven't made a dime out of it.
You know very well why. The Baileys were all chumps. Every one of those homes is worth twice what it cost the building alone to build. If I were you, Mr. Potter.
You are not me.
As I say, it's no skin off my nose. But one of these days, this bright young man is going to be asking George Bailey for a job.
Reineman exits.
Bailey family's been a boil on my ass a boil on my neck. Long enough.
He flips the switch on the dictaphone.
Yes, sir.
Come in here.
Exterior Bailey Park, day. George and Mary are talking to Wainwright in front of the latter's car. Jane, his wife, is now out of the car. Sam speaks.
Sorry, I lost my space. Can someone cover me here?
Page 89.
We just stopped in town to take a look at the new factory, and then we're going to drive on down to Florida.
Oh.
Why don't you have your friends join us, dear?
Why, sure. Hey, why don't you kids drive down with us?
Huh?
Oh, I'm afraid I couldn't get away, Sam.
Still got the nose of the old grindstone, eh? Jane, I offered to let George in on the ground floor in plastics, and he turned me down cold.
Oh, now don't rub it in.
I'm not rubbing it in. Well, I guess we better run along.
Handshaking all around. Sam and Jane get in their car.
Awfully glad to have met you, Mary.
Nice meeting you.
Goodbye.
Goodbye, George.
Come on, George. See you in the funny papers.
Goodbye, Sam.
Have fun.
Thanks for dropping around.
Florida.
Florida.
Hee-haw.
Hee-haw.
Big black limousine glides away, leaving George standing with his arm around Mary, gazing broodingly. They slowly walk to George's old car and look at it silently. Wipe to interior Potter's office. Day. Potter is lighting a big cigar, which he's just given George. The goon is beside Potter's chair as usual.
Thank you, sir. Quite
Like
a
it?
cigar, Mr. Potter.
I'll send you a box.
Well, yeah, I suppose I'll find out sooner or later, but just what exactly did you want to see me about?
George, now that's just what I like so much about you. George, I'm an old man, and most people hate me, but I don't like them either, so that makes it all even. You know, just as well as I do that I run practically everything in this town, but the Bailey building and loan. You know, also that for a number of years been trying to gain control of it or kill it, but I haven't been able to do it. You've been stopping me. In fact, you've beaten me, George. Anyone in this country can tell you that takes some doing. Take during the Depression, for instance. You and I were the only ones that kept our heads. You saved the building and loan, and I saved all the rest.
Yeah. Oh, well, most people say you stole all the rest.
The envious ones say that, George. The suckers. And I've stated my side very frankly. Now let's look at your side. Young man, 27, 28, married, making, say, 40 a week.
45.
No. 45. Out of which, after supporting your mother and paying your bills, you're able to keep, say, 10 if you skimp. A child or two comes along, you wouldn't be able to save that 10. So now, if this young man of 28 was a common ordinary yokel, I'd say he was doing fine. But George Bailey is not a common ordinary yokel. He's an intelligent, smart, ambitious young man who hates his job, who hates the building loan almost as much as I do. A young man's been dying to get on his own ever since he was born. A young man, smartest one in the crowd, mind you. A young man who has to sit by and watch his friends go places because he's trapped. Yes, sir, trapped into frittering his life away playing nursemaid to a lot of garlic eaters. Do I paint the correct picture, George? Or do I exaggerate?
Now, what's your point, Mr. Potter?
My point? My point is I want to hire you.
Hire me?
Yes, I want you to manage my affairs, run my properties, walk Toby. George, I'll start you out at $20,000 a year.
$20,000 a year?
You wouldn't mind living in the nicest house in town? Buy your wife fine clothes, a couple business trips to New York a year? Maybe once in a while, Europe? You wouldn't mind that, would you, George?
Would I? You're not talking to somebody else around here, are you? You know, this is me. You remember me, George Bailey.
Oh, yes, George Bailey, whose ship has come in, providing us the brains to climb aboard.
Well, what about the building and loan?
Oh, confound it, man. Are you afraid of success? I'm offering you a 3-year contract at $20,000 a year, starting today. How's the deal, or isn't it?
Well, Mr. Potter, I know I ought to jump at the chance, but I wonder if it would be possible for you to give me 24 hours to think it over.
Sure. Yeah, you go at home. Talk about it to your wife.
I'd like to do that.
In the meantime, I'll drop the papers.
All right, sir.
Okay, George.
Okay, Mr. Potter.
As they shake hands, George feels a physical revolt like a cold mackerel to him. He knows he could never be associated with this man. George drops his hand with a shudder. He peers intently into Potter's face.
No. Wait a minute here. I don't have to talk to anybody. I know right now, and the answer is no. Doggone it. You sit around here and you spin your little webs and you think the whole world revolves around you and your money. Well, it doesn't, Mr. Potter. And in the whole vast configuration of things, I'd say you're nothing but a scurvy little spider.
He turns and shuts.
And that goes for you too.
George opens the office door to exit. He shouts at Mr. Potter's secretary in the outer office.
I goes for you too!
Wipe to George and Mary's house, night. The room is modestly furnished with a cheap bed, chair or two, and a dresser. Mary's asleep. George comes in, his head filled with many confusing thoughts related to incidents in his past life.
Wouldn't mind living in the nicest house in town, buying your wife a lot of fine clothes, going to New York on a business trip a couple of times a year.
Maybe to Europe once in a while. George takes off his hat and coat, moves over to the dresser and stares at his reflection in the mirror.
I know what I'm going to do tomorrow and the next day and the next year and the year after that. I'm shaking the dust off this crummy little town off my feet and I'm going to see the world. I'm going to build things. I'm going to build airfields. I'm going to build skyscrapers 100 stories high. I'm going to build a bridge a mile long.
While the above thoughts are passing through George's head, his attention is caught by a picture on the wall near the dresser. It's the sketch of George lassoing the moon.
What is it you want, Mary? You want the moon? If you do, just say the word. I'll throw a lasso around it, pull it down for you.
Mary is now awake. These thoughts are kind of loud. Start singing their themes. George classes.
Hi.
Hi.
Oh, Mary Hatch, why in the world did you ever marry a guy like me?
Keep from being an old maid.
You could have married Sam Wainwright or anybody else in town.
I didn't want to marry anybody else in town. I want my baby to look like you.
You didn't even have a honeymoon. I promised you. You're what?
My baby.
You mean Mary? You're on the nest?
George Bailey Lasso Stork.
Oh, Lasso's a stork. You mean what? What is it? Boy or a girl?
Mm-hmm.
Montage sequence. A series of shots. We hear the voices of Joseph and Clarence in heaven. George is crossing the street headed for the office of the building and loan.
Now you've probably already guessed that George never leaves Bedford Falls.
No.
Nurse holding newborn baby.
Mary had her baby, a boy.
Close shot of Mary on the floor playing with it. Little boy in the playpen.
Then she had another one, a girl.
Mary hangs wallpaper and paints the old place.
Day after day, she worked away, remaking old Grainville House into a home.
George has just come into the hall, tired and discouraged as he starts up the stairs. The knob on the banister comes off in his hand.
Night after night, George came back late from the office. Potter was bearing down hard.
A group of men, obviously just drafted, marches along in a camp.
Then came a war.
Mrs. Bailey and other women in Red Cross uniforms, etc.
Ma Bailey and Mrs. Hatch joined the Red Cross and sewed.
Mary, with a portable USO pushcart, is serving coffee and donuts to men leaning from a train.
Mary had 2 more babies, but still found time to run the USO.
Sam Wainwright showing a set of blueprints to Army officers.
Sam Wainwright made a fortune in plastic hoods for planes.
Potter is wheeled in toward a long table around which several men are seated.
Potter became head of the draft board.
1A, 1A, 1A.
Gower and Uncle Billy are conducting a bond rally from the top of an army tank.
Gower and Uncle Billy sold war bonds.
Bert in uniform moves cautiously with a fixed bayonet, smoke and flashes of gunfire in the background.
Bert the cop was wounded in North Africa. Got the Silver Star.
Hundreds of planes fly overhead with parachutes dropping from them.
Ernie, the taxi driver, parachuted into France.
Marty in the foreground beckoning to soldiers to come toward him.
Marty helped capture the Richmond Bridge.
Harry fastening the helmet of his flying clothes. He waves as he exits through the door.
Harry Bailey topped them all. a Navy flyer. He shot down 15 planes.
A flaming plane crashes into the sea.
2 of them as they were about to crash into a transport full of soldiers.
Yes, but George?
George behind the counter is trying to quiet a crowd of people all clamoring for more ration points.
I think that's Joseph.
George? 4F on account of his ear. George fought the Battle of Bedford Falls.
Hold on now. Don't you know there's a war on?
George, in the uniform of an air raid warden, is patrolling his beat.
Air raid warden.
Headed window pulls down the shade.
Paper drives. Scrap drives. Rubber drives. Like everybody else on VE Day, he wept and prayed. On VJ Day, he wept and prayed again.
Joseph, now show him what happened today.
Yes, sir.
George is walking around the block, reading a newspaper. It's a raw day. And draped around one arm is a large Christmas wreath. On his other arm are several more copies of the paper.
This morning, day before Christmas, about 10 a.m., Bedford Falls time.
George walks to where Ernie is standing on the sidewalk.
Hey, Ernie, oh, look at that.
The front page of the newspaper, the Bedford Falls Sentinel. The headline reads, President decorates Harry Bailey. Local boy wins Congressional Medal of Honor. The subhead tells of a plan for a giant jubilee and parade to be followed by a banquet and congressional, And there's a picture of Truman. Practically the whole front page is devoted to the story.
Gonna snow again, eh?
What do you mean it's gonna snow again? Look at the headline.
I know. I think it's marvelous.
Gower comes running across the street.
Commander Harry Bailey. Mr. Gower, look at this. The second page. Now, look, this is for you. This is for you. And this is for you. See? You again.
Uncle Billy is walking along the street, humming happily to himself. There's a huge sign reading, Welcome home, Harry Bailey.
Be sure you spell the name right.
Off the building and loan offices. The offices are unchanged, still small time, same office force. Seated on a chair is a middle-aged man with a briefcase. The outer
Extra. Read all about it.
Cousin Tilly and Eustace are talking on the phone.
George, it's Harry now on long distance from Washington.
Harry? What do you know about that?
He reversed the charges. It's okay, isn't it?
What do you mean it's okay? For hero? Harry, oh, you old 7 kinds of a son of a gun, and congratulations, how's Mother standing it? She did? Oh, what do you know? Oh, Mother had lunch with the president's wife.
Wait till Martha hears about this.
What did they have to eat?
Well, what do they have to eat? Harry, you should see what they're cooking up here in the town for you. Oh, are they? The Navy's going to fly Mother home this afternoon.
In a plane?
What? Uncle Billy? Has Uncle Billy come in yet?
Oh no, he stopped by the bank first.
Oh, he's here right now, Harry.
Cousin Eustace turns away from George. They see a man in the chair. It's Carter, the bank examiner, for his annual audit.
But look.
George.
And now tell me about it.
George, that man's here.
Well, what
again.
man? What man?
Bank examiner.
Oh. Yeah, good morning, sir.
Carter, bank examiner.
Yeah, Mr. Carter. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
We're all excited around here. My brother just got the Congressional Medal of Honor. The president just decorated him.
Well, I guess they do those things. Well, I trust you've had a good year.
Good year. Well, between you and me, Mr. Carter, we're broke.
Yes, very funny.
Well, now come right in here, Mr. Carter.
Although I shouldn't wonder when you okay reverse charges on personal long distance calls. George, shall we hang up?
No. He wants to talk to Uncle Billy. You just hold on.
Now, if you'll cooperate, I'd like to finish with you by tonight. I want to spend Christmas in Cucamonga with my family.
Yeah, I don't blame you at all, Mr. Carter. Just step right in here. We'll fix you up.
Uncle Billy is filling out a deposit slip at one of the desks.
December 24th.
Takes a thick envelope from bills, thumbs through them. It's a lot of money.
8,000.
Potter's being wheeled in by his goons. Various bank officials run over to greet him. He's reading a newspaper. Uncle Billy has finished filling out his slip, comes to taunt Potter with the money in his hand.
Well, good morning, Mr. Potter. What's the news?
He grabs the paper from Potter's hand.
Well. Harry Bailey wins congressional medal. That couldn't be one of those Bailey boys. You just can't keep those Bailey boys down now, can you, Mr. Potter?
How does Slacker George feel about that?
Very jealous. He only lost 3 buttons off his vest. Of course, Slacker George would have gotten 2 of those medals if he had gone.
Bad ear.
Yes.
Uncle Billy folds Potter's paper over the envelope and flings his final taunt at the old man.
After all, Potter, some people like George had to stay home. Not every hero was in Germany and Japan.
In cold rage, Potter grabs the paper and wheels off toward his office. Billy smiles triumphantly and goes toward the deposit window with his slip. They're at the window.
Good morning, Horace.
He hands the bank book over. The teller opens it, starts to punch it.
I guess you forgot something.
Huh?
You forgot something.
What?
Well, aren't you going to make a deposit?
Sure I am.
Well, then it's usually customary to bring the money with you.
Oh, shucks.
He searches all his pockets.
I know I had. Oh.
Teller, knowing the old man's vagaries, points to one of the numerous strings around his fingers.
How about that one?
Well, I...
Potter's now behind his desk. He spreads the newspaper out, muttering. He sees the envelope, looks inside at the money, then to his
Bailey.
indicates the Potter door, indicates the office door.
Timmy back there, hurry up. Come on, look sharp.
Potter opens the door just a little, peers into the bank. Uncle Billy looks around for the money envelope. It isn't there. He looks puzzled, thinks, and looks through wastepaper baskets, everything. Back to Potter.
Take me back.
Goon wheels him back to his desk. He's deep in thought with a crafty expression on his face. Uncle Billy runs across the street toward the saving and loan. George comes from the room where he's just the examiner.
Oh, just make yourself at home, Mr. Carter. I'll get those books for you.
Sees Violet Bick.
Oh, hello, Vi.
George, can I see you for a second?
Well, of course you can. Come on in the office here.
He hears a noise, sees Uncle Billy.
Uncle Billy, talk to Harry. He's on the telephone.
George and Violet enter his private office. Uncle Billy comes hurrying in.
Hi, Uncle Billy. Hi. Long distance from Washington.
Hey, here's Harry on the phone.
Harry, your nephew, remember?
Here he is.
Uncle Billy picks up the phone and speaks distractedly without knowing what he's saying.
Hello. Yes, Harry, yes. Everything's fine.
He hangs up, agitatedly muttering to himself. Tilly and Eustace look after him, dumbfounded.
I should have had my head examined. $8,000. It's got to be somewhere.
See George and Violet. George has just finished writing something and slipping the paper into an envelope.
Here you are.
Character? If I had any character,
It takes a lot of character to leave your hometown and start all over again.
pulls some money from his pocket, offers it to her.
No, George, don't.
Here, now, you're broke, aren't you?
I know, but
Well, what do you want to do? Hawk your furs and that hat? Want to walk to New York? They charge for meals and rent up there, just the same as they do here in Bedford Falls.
yeah, sure.
It's a loan. That's my business, building and loan. Besides, you'll get a job, and good luck to you.
She looks at him, then says,
I'm glad I know you, George Bailey.
reaches up and kisses him on the cheek, leaving lipstick the door for her. As they come through, they're being watched. Tilly, Eustace, and the bank still waiting to go to work on the books.
Yeah, say hello to New York for me.
Yeah, sure I will.
Oh,
Oh, what's the matter? Oh, Merry Christmas, Vi.
Merry Christmas, George.
He exits.
Mr. Bailey.
Oh, Mr. Carter, I'm sorry. I'll be with you. Uncle Billy in?
Yeah, he's in his office.
Interior, Uncle Billy's office, day. As George opens the door, he sees Uncle Billy frantically looking for the missing envelope. The office is a mess. Papers scattered on the floor and desk.
Unc, what's going on? Bank examiner's here.
He's here?
Yeah. He wants the accounts payable.
George stops short, aware of the tragic old eyes looking at him.
What's the matter with you?
Billy gestures nervously for him to come in and closes the door. Tilly is still at the switchboard, Eustace standing beside her. Carter with the doorway. The door opens, riding out, goes directly to the safe, starts searching, doesn't find it, the money. Then he goes to the cash drawer, looks through it.
Eustace?
Yeah?
Come here a minute.
He runs over.
Yeah, did you see Uncle Billy with any cash last night?
He had it on his desk, counting it before he closed up.
On the main street of Bedford Falls, Uncle Billy and George are retracing Billy's steps through the snow, looking everywhere. They pause for a moment on the sidewalk.
And now, did you buy anything?
Nothing. Not even a stick of gum.
All right. Now, we'll go over every step you took since you left the house.
This way.
They continue down the street. Potter's peering at them through the slats of a Venetian blind as they go. They keep going. They go to Uncle Billy's living room, which is kind of shabby looking.
And did you put the envelope in your pocket?
Yeah, maybe.
Maybe? I don't want any maybe. Uncle Billy, we've got to find that money.
I'm no good to you, George.
Listen to me. Did you have any secret hiding place here in the house? Someplace you could have put it? Someplace to hide the money?
I've been all over the house, even in rooms that have been looked over since I lost Laura.
Now listen to me. Think.
I can't think anymore, George. I can't think anymore. It hurts.
Where's the money, you stupid, silly old fool? Where's the money? Do you realize what this means? It means bankruptcy, scandal, or prison.
He throws Billy into the chair.
That's what it means. One of us is going to jail. Well, it's not going to be me.
He heads for the door, kicking out a wastebasket as he goes. Billy sobs. In George's living room, Janie, 8, is playing Hark the Herald Angels Sing. There's a Christmas tree. At a large table, Mary is putting bows and decorations on packages. Pete, age 9, is with a pad and pencil drawing stuff. 3-year-old Tommy is playing with a toy vacuum cleaner. Mary turns and sees George entering the hall.
Hello, darling.
Hello, Daddy. Hello.
How do you like it?
Hey, Daddy.
Did you bring the wreath?
What wreath? Yeah.
The Merry Christmas wreath for the window.
No, I left it at the office.
Is it snowing?
Yeah, it just started.
Where's your coat and hat?
I left them at the office.
What's the matter?
Nothing's the matter. Everything's all right.
He slumps into a chair, lifts Tommy onto his lap.
Go on, Pete. You're a big boy. You can put the star up, way up at the top. That's it. Oh, fill in that little bare spot right there. That's it. Isn't it wonderful about Harry? We're famous, George. I'll bet I had 50 calls today about the parade, the banquet. Your mother's so excited.
During the scene, George has been sitting in the chair and crying quietly.
Must she keep playing like that?
I have to practice for the party tonight, Daddy.
Mommy says we can stay up till midnight and sing Christmas carols.
Can you sing, Daddy?
Better hurry and shave. The families will be here soon.
Families? I don't want any families over here.
Harry leads them into the kitchen.
Come out in the kitchen with me while I finish dinner.
Excuse me. Excuse me.
As they go to the kitchen.
Did you have a hectic day?
Oh, yeah, another big red letter day for the Baileys.
Daddy, the Browns next door have a new car. You should see it.
Well, what's the matter with our car? Is it good enough for you?
Yes, Daddy.
Excuse me. Excuse me.
They come through the door.
Excuse you for what?
I burped.
Oh, it's all right, darling. You're excused. Now go upstairs and see what little Zuzu wants.
Tommy
Zuzu.
leaves.
Oh, well, what's the matter with Zuzu?
Oh, she's got a cold. She's in bed. Caught it coming home from school. They gave her a flower for a prize, and she didn't want to crush it, so she didn't button up her coat.
What is it? Sore throat or what?
Just a cold. The doctor says it's nothing serious.
The doctor? Is the doctor here?
Well, yes, I called him right away. He says it's nothing to worry about.
Is she running a temperature? What is it?
Just a teensy one, 99.6. She'll be all right.
George.
Gosh, this old house. I don't know why we don't have all have pneumonia. This drafty old barn. I might as well be living in a refrigerator. Oh, why do we have to live here in the first place and stay around this measly, crummy old town?
George, what's wrong?
Wrong? Well, everything's wrong. You call this a happy family? Why do we have to have all these kids?
Dad, how do you spell frankincense?
I don't know. Ask your mother.
Where are you going?
Going up to see Zuzu.
We hear his footsteps. Mary looks after him, puzzled and concerned, then comes over to Pete.
He told me to write a play for tonight.
F-R-A-N-K-I-N.
George starts up the stairs. The knob on the banister has come off his hand again. He thinks about hurling it into the living room. Then he replaces it, goes up the stairs. Zuzu's bedroom. The sound of Janie at the piano can still be heard. Zuzu, 6, is sitting up in her bed, the lamp burning beside her. She's holding her prized flower. George tiptoes in, sees she's awake, and comes over, sitting on the edge of her bed.
Hi, Daddy.
Well, what happened to you?
I want a flower.
He starts to get out of bed.
Wait now. Where do you think you're going?
Want to give my flower a drink.
All right. Here. Yeah, give Daddy the flower. I'll give it a drink.
She shakes her head, presses the flower to her. A few petals fall off. She picks them up.
Look, Daddy, paste it.
Yeah, all right. I'll paste this together.
She hands him the petals on the flower. He turns his back to Zuzu, pretending to be tinkering with the flower. He sticks the fallen petals into his watch pocket, rearranges the flower, turns back to Zuzu.
Oh, there it is. Good as new.
Give the flower a drink.
He puts it in a glass of water on the table beside her bed.
Now, will you do something for me?
What?
Will you try to get some sleep?
I'm not sleepy. I want to look at my flower.
Oh, I know, but you just go to sleep and you can dream about it and it'll be a whole garden.
It will?
Uh-huh.
She closes her eyes and relaxes on the bed. George pulls the covers over her. He bends down and his lips touch a tendril of the child's hair. Then he gets up and tiptoes out of the room. Janie is still pounding with grim determination at the piano. Pete is seated at the table writing. Tommy is playing with his vacuum cleaner. The telephone rings.
Telephone.
I'll get it. Hello? Yes, this is Mrs. Bailey. Oh, thank you, Mrs. Welch. I'm sure she'll be all right. The doctor says she just ought to be in bed, and she ought to be out of bed at any time to have her. No. The doctor says she ought to be out of bed in time to have Christmas dinner.
Is that Zuzu's teacher?
Yes.
Yeah, let me speak to her. Hello, Mrs. Welch. This is George Bailey's. I'm Zuzu's father. Say, what kind of teacher are you anyway? What do you mean sending her home like that half naked? You realize she'll probably end up with pneumonia on account of you?
George.
She puts a restraining hand on his arm. He shakes it off. She cannot know this is really about the whole bank thing.
Is this the sort of thing we pay taxes for, to have teachers like you, silly, stupid, careless people who send our kids home without any clothes on? You know, maybe my kids aren't the best dressed kids. Maybe they don't have any decent clothes.
Mary succeeds in wresting the phone from George's hand.
Oh, that's stupid.
Hello, Mrs. Welch. I want to apologize. Hello? She's hung up.
I'll hang her up.
The phone is suddenly alive with a powerful male voice.
Now, who do you think you are?
George hears this, grabs the phone away from Mary.
What? Wait a minute. Well, hello. Who is this? Oh, Mr. Welch. Okay, well, that's fine, Mr. Welch. Give me a chance to tell me what I really think about your wife.
George.
Okay, would you get out and let me handle this? Hello? What? Oh, you will, huh? Oh, okay, Mr. Welch, anytime you think you're man enough. Hello?
But we hear a click on the phone.
Oh.
He hangs up the receiver. He's flushed.
Daddy, how do you spell hallelujah?
How should I know? What do you think I am, a dictionary?
He yells at Tommy, playing with his vacuum cleaner.
Tommy, stop it, stop that.
Janie's still practicing the piano.
Oh, Janie, haven't you learned that silly tune? You played it over and over again. Now stop it.
The room has suddenly become quiet, the only sound being George's labored breathing. He goes to a corner of the room where his workshop is set up. Several models of modern buildings, etc. He kicks them over, picks up some books and hurls them into the corner. Mary and the children watch, horrified. George sees them staring at him as if he were an unknown wild animal. The children are crying.
I'm sorry, Mary. Janie, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to. You go on. Practice, Pete. I owe you an apology too. I'm sorry. What do you want to know?
Nothing, Daddy.
Mary and the children stare at him, stunned by his outburst. There's silence in the
What's
room.
the matter with everybody? Janie, go on. I told you to practice. Well, go on, play.
Oh, Daddy.
George, why must you torture the children? Why don't you?
Mary.
He quickly heads out the front door. Mary goes to
Bedford 247, please.
Is Daddy in trouble?
Shall I pray for him? Allah Akbar.
Yes, Janie, pray very hard.
Me too?
Yes, you too, Tommy. Hello, Uncle Billy?
Interior Potter's office, night. At his desk, his goons beside him. He's signing some papers. George is seated in a chair before the desk without a hat or coat.
I'm in trouble, Mr. Potter. I need help. Through some sort of an accident, my company shortened their accounts, and the bank examiner's up there today. I've got to raise $8,000 immediately.
That's what the reporters wanted to talk to you about.
Reporters?
Yes, they called me up for your building and loan. I met over there from the DA's office too. He's looking for you.
Please help me, Mr. Potter. Help me, won't you, please? Can't you see what it means to my family? I'll pay you any sort of bonus on the loan, any interest. If you still want the building and loan, why?
George, could it possibly be there's a slight discrepancy in your books?
No, sir. No, there's nothing wrong with the books. I've just Misplaced $8,000. I can't find it anywhere.
You misplaced $8,000?
Yes, sir.
Have you notified the police?
No, sir. I didn't want the publicity. Harry's homecoming tomorrow, and
You're going to believe that one. What have you been doing, George? Playing the market with the company's money?
no, sir. No, sir. I haven't.
What is it, a woman? I mean, you know, it's all over town to be giving money to Violet Bick.
What?
Not that it makes a difference to me. I mean, why do you come to me? Why don't you go to Sam Wainwright and ask him for money?
I can't get a hold of him. He's in Europe.
What about all your other friends?
They don't have that kind of money, Mr. Potter. You know that. You're the only one in town who can help me.
I see. I've suddenly become quite important. What kind of security would I have, George? Have you any stocks?
No, sir.
Bonds, real estate, collateral of any kind?
Oh, I have some life insurance. $15,000 policy.
How much equity is in it?
$500.
Look at you. You used to be so cocky. You're going to go out and conquer the world. You once called me a warped, frustrated old man. What are you but a warped, frustrated young man? Miserable little clerk crawling here on your hands and knees and begging for help. No securities, no stocks, no bonds. Nothing but a miserable little $500 equity of life insurance policy. You're worth more dead than alive. Why don't you go ask the riffraff you love so much to let them have $8,000? You know why? Because they'd run you out of town on a rail. And I'll tell you what I'm going to do for you, George. Since the state examiner is still here, as a stockholder of the building alone, I'm going to swear out a warrant for your arrest. Misappropriation of funds, manipulations, malfeasance, all those N words.
Turns and starts out of the office as Potter picks up the phone.
All right, George, go ahead. Can't hide a little town like this.
He's out the door by now. The camera moves in on Potter.
Bill? This is Potter.
Main Street, Bedford Falls, night. George comes out of the bank, into the falling snow. He crosses the street, tugs at the door of his old car, the door and drives off. We're at Martini's bar, night. A little tavern. And George is seated at the bar. He's had a great deal to drink, far more than he's accustomed to.
Merry Christmas. Glad you came.
How about some of that good spaghetti?
We got everything.
The camera moves closer to George. Nick, the bartender, is watching him solicitously. On the other side of George is a burly guy drinking beer. George is mumbling.
God, dear Father in heaven, I'm not a praying man, but you're up there and you can hear me. Show me the way. I'm at the end of my rope. Show me the way, God.
Are you all right, George? Want someone to take you home?
Why do you drink so much, my friend? Please go home, Mr. Bailey. This is Christmas Eve.
Bailey? Which Bailey? This is Mr. George Bailey.
Burly man throws a vicious punch at George, who goes in and out. Martini, Nick, and several others rush to pick him up.
And the next time you talk to my wife like that, you'll get worse. She cried for an hour. It isn't enough she slaves teaching your stupid kids how to read and write, and you have to bawl her out.
You get out of here, Mr. Welch.
Now wait, I want to pay for my Shirley Temple.
Never mind the money. You get out of here, quick.
All right.
You hit my best friend. Get out.
You all right, Miss George?
Who was that?
He's gone. Don't worry. His name is Welch. He don't come into my place no more.
Oh, Welch. Well, that's what I get for praying.
The last time he come in here, you hear that, Nick?
Yes, you bet.
Where's my insurance policy? Oh, here.
He starts for the door.
Oh, no, please, don't go out this way, Mr. Bailey.
I'm all right.
They try to stop him, but he shrugs them off.
Oh, no, you don't feel so good.
I'm all right.
Please don't go away, please. I don't know what
George
accent I'm supposed
opens
to
the
be.
door. George's car comes along the empty street through the falling snow, suddenly swerves and crashes into a tree near the sidewalk. George gets out to look at the damage, kicks the open door of the car, trying to shut it. The noise brings the owner of the house running out.
What do you think you're doing?
George stands unsteadily near the car, shaken by the accident. The front lights are broken, the fenders ripped. He stands dully looking at the damage. The owner comes up. He leans to examine the damage.
Now look what you did. My great-grandfather planted this tree.
George staggers down the street, paying no attention to the man.
Hey, you! You come back here, you drunken fool! Get this car out of here.
We're now at the bridge over the river. George is crossing the approach to the bridge when a truck swings around the corner and nearly hits him.
Hey, what's the matter, you? Look where you're going.
The truck turns onto the bridge and George takes a narrow catwalk at the railing. He's now stopped at the railing at the center of the bridge. The snow is falling hard. George tips down from George's ankle to the water, dotted with floating ice passing under the bridge. George stares at the water, trying to make up his mind. He leans down, fascinated, crouches as though to jump. From above George, a body hurls past and lands in the water with a loud splash. George looks down, horrified.
Help! Help!
George quickly takes off his coat and dives over the railing into the water. George comes up, sees the man flailing in the water, and the camera pans with him as he swims toward the man.
Help! 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 Help!
The toll house keeper,
help!
Hearing the cries for help like that, comes running out of the bridge, out onto the bridge with a flashlight, shines it on the guys in the water. The man in the water is Clarence, who's been hearing from heaven and also hollering help. George reaches him, grabs hold of him, and swims to shore. We're now in the toll house on the bridge. There's a wood-burning stove there. Clothes are drying on the line. George is in his long winter underwear, sipping a mug of coffee. Clarence is in a 17th century undergarment that looks like a baby's nightshirt. The toll house keeper is seated against the wall, eyeing them suspiciously. Clarence speaks.
I didn't have time to get some stylish underwear. My wife gave this to me on my last birthday. I passed away in it.
The toll house keeper about stopped by this remark. Clarence picks up the copy of Tom Sawyer.
Oh, Tom Sawyer's drawing out too. You should read the new book Mark Twain's written.
The toll keeper stares incredulously again. How'd you happen? Oh, sorry. Where's that?
That's all right. How'd you happen to fall in?
I didn't fall in. I jumped in to save George.
You what? To save me?
Well, I did, didn't I? You didn't go through with it, did you?
Go through with what?
Suicide.
It's against the law to commit suicide around here.
Yeah, well, it's against the law where I come from, too.
Where do you come from?
Leans forward to spit, but...
Heaven. I had to act quickly. That's why I jumped in. I knew if I were drowning, you'd try to save me. And you see, you did, and that's how I saved you.
Very funny.
Your lips bleeding, George.
Oh, yeah. I got a bust in the jaw there. Answer to a little prayer a little bit ago.
Oh, no. I'm the answer to your prayer. That's why I was sent down here.
How do you know my name?
Oh, I know all about you. I've watched you grow up like a little boy.
Oh, what are you, a mind reader or something?
Oh, no.
Well, who are you then?
Clarence Oddbody, AS2.
Oddbody. AS2. What's that AS2?
Angel second class.
The toll keeper's chair slips out from under him with a crash. From his expression, it looks like he'll call the nearest cop.
Cheerio, my good man.
Oh, brother, I wonder what Martini put in those drinks. Hey, what's with you? What did you say just a minute ago? Why did you want to save me?
That's what I was sent here for. I'm your guardian angel.
Yeah, I wouldn't be a bit surprised.
Ridiculous of you to think of killing yourself for money. $8,000.
Well, yeah, I mean, just things like that. How did you know that?
I told you, I'm your guardian angel. I know everything about you.
Well, you look about like the kind of angel I'd get, sort of fallen angel, aren't you? What happened to your wings?
I haven't won my wings yet. That's why I'm an angel second class.
Oh, I don't know whether I like it very much, being seen around with an angel without any wings.
Oh, I've got to earn them, and you'll help me, won't you?
Sure. How?
By letting me help you.
Only one way you can help me. You don't happen to have $8,000 on you, do you?
We don't use money in heaven.
Oh, yeah, that's right. I keep forgetting. Comes in pretty handy down here, bub.
Yeah.
Yeah, I found it a little late. I'm worth more dead than alive.
Now look, you mustn't talk like that. I want to get my wings. I won't get my wings with that attitude. You just don't know all that you've done. If it hadn't been for you.
Yeah. If it hadn't been for me, everybody'd be better off. My wife and my kids, my friends, and look, little fellow, go off and haunt somebody else, will you?
No, you don't understand. I've got my job.
Oh, shut up, will you?
This isn't going to be so easy. So, you still think killing yourself would make everyone feel happier, eh?
Oh, I don't know. I guess you're right. I suppose it would have been better if I'd never been born at all.
What did you say?
I said I wish I'd never been born.
You mustn't say things like that. Wait a minute. That's an idea. What do you think? Yeah? That'll do it? Well, all right. You've got your wish, George. You've never been born.
As Clarence speaks this line, the snow stops falling outside the building. A strong wind springs up, which blows open the door to the shack. Clarence runs to close the door.
You don't have to make all that fuss about it!
Clarence speaks. George cocks his head curiously, favoring his deaf ear, more interested in his hearing than what Clarence has said.
What did you say?
You've never been born. You don't exist. You don't have a care in the world.
George feels his ear as Clarence talks.
No worries, no obligations, no $8,000 to get, no Potter looking for you with the sheriff.
George points to his ear.
Say something else in that ear.
Yep. Sure, you can hear out of it.
Well, that's the doggonedest thing. I haven't heard anything out of that ear since I was a kid. Must have been the jump in the cold water.
Your lips stop bleeding, too, George.
George feels his lip, which shows no sign of the cut. He's confused.
Well, what do you know about that? Oh, what's happened?
He looks around as though to get his bearings.
Yeah, it stopped snowing out, hasn't it? What's happened here? Come on. As soon as these clothes of ours dry.
Our clothes are dry.
Oh, well, what do you know about that? Stove's hotter than I thought. Oh, come on. Get your clothes on. We'll stroll up to my car and get... I'm sorry. I'll stroll. You fly.
I can't fly. I haven't got my wings.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you haven't got your wings. Yeah, that's right.
We're on the same empty street where George's car swerved onto the tree near the sidewalk. They come up to the spot. George looks around, but his car is nowhere to be seen, and the tree is undamaged.
Yeah.
What's the matter?
Well, this is where I left my car. It isn't here.
You don't have a car.
Well, I had a car. It's right here. I guess somebody moved it.
The owner of the house passes with some Christmas packages under his arm.
Good evening.
Oh, say, hey, where's my car?
I beg your pardon?
My car. The fellow who owns the car that ran into your tree.
What tree?
What do you mean, what tree? This tree here, I ran into it. Got a big gash in the side of it here.
Why, you must mean two other trees. You had me worried. One of the oldest trees in Pottersville.
Pottersville? Why, you mean Bedford Falls?
I mean Pottersville. Don't you think I know where I live? What's the matter with you?
The owner proceeds toward his house. George is bewildered.
Oh, I don't know. Either I'm off my nut or he is. Or you are.
It isn't me.
Well, maybe I left the car up at Martini's. Oh, come on, Gabriel.
His arm around Clarence, they start up the road.
It's Clarence.
Clarence.
At Martini's place, it's almost unrecognizable. The cheerful feeling is gone. It's now more of a hard drinking joint, a honky-tonk. Nick, the bartender's behind the bar. George and Clarence come in. George doesn't notice the difference, but Clarence is all eyes and beaming. They go up to the bar.
Oh, that's all right. Go on in. Martini's a good friend of mine. There's a place to sit down. Sit down. Oh, hello, Nick. Hey, where's Martini?
You want a martini?
No, Martini, your boss. Where is he?
Look, I'm the boss. You want a drink or don't you?
Okay, all right. Double bourbon, quick, huh?
Okay, what's yours?
Well, I was just thinking. It's been a long time since I.
Look, mister, I'm standing here waiting for you to make up your mind.
That's a good man. Oh, I was just thinking of a flaming rum punch. No, it's not cold enough for that. No, not nearly cold enough. Wait a minute. I got it. Mulled wine. Mulled wine, heavy on the cinnamon and light on the cloves. Off with you, my lad. Be lively.
Hey, look, mister. We serve hard drinks in here for men who want to get drunk fast, and we don't need any characters around to give the joint atmosphere. Is that clear, or do I have to slip you my left for a convincer?
As he says this, Nick leans over the counter and puts his left fist nearly in Clarence's eye. Clarence is puzzled by his conduct.
What's he talking about?
Nick. I'll just give him the same as mine. He's okay.
Okay.
Nick gets drinks.
Yeah, what's the matter with him? I never saw Nick act like that before.
You'll see a lot of strange things from now on.
Oh, yeah. Hey, little fellow, worry me. You got someplace to sleep?
No.
You don't? Huh? Well, got any money?
No.
Listening.
Yeah, well, no wonder you jumped in the river.
I jumped in the river to save you so I could get my wings.
Nick stops pouring drinks, bottle poised in hand.
Oh, that's right.
A cash register rings off stage. Clarence reacts to the sound of the bell.
Uh-oh. Somebody's just made it.
Made what?
Every time you hear a bell ring, it means some angel's just got his wings.
George glances at Nick.
Yeah, look, I think maybe you better not mention getting your wings around here.
Why? Don't they believe in angels?
Yeah, but, you know.
Then why should they be surprised when they see one?
Yeah, look, he never grew up. He's how old are you anyway, Clarence?
293. Next May.
That does it. Out you two pixies go. Through the door or out the window.
Look, Nick, what's wrong?
And that's another thing. Where do you come off calling me Nick?
Well, Nick, that's your name, isn't it?
What's that got to do with it? I don't know you from Adams off Ox. Hey, you, Rummy, come here.
A small wreck of a man with watery eyes, a panhandler, his hat in his hand. He can hardly believe his eyes. It's Gower the druggist.
Didn't I tell you never to come panhandling around here?
Nick picks up a seltzer bottle, squirts Gower in the face with it. The crowd laughs brutally. Gower smiles weakly as the soda runs off his face. George, horrified, goes to Gower.
Well, Mr. Gower, this is George Bailey. Don't you know me?
Oh. No.
Throw him out! Throw him out!
They do. George rushes back to the bar.
Hey, hey, Nick, isn't that Mr. Gower, the druggist?
You know, that's another reason for me not to like you. That rumhead spent 20 years in jail for poisoning a kid. If you know him, you must be a jailbird yourself. Would you show these gentlemen to the door? Sure, this way, gentlemen.
George and Clarence come flying through the door and land in the snow. Nick is at the cash register, busily ringing the bell.
Hey, get me! I'm giving out wings!
Cha-ching! Cha-ching!
George and Clarence lie in the snow. George has a strange, puzzled look on his face. They remain there for a moment, looking at each other.
You see, George, you were not there to stop Gower from putting that poison into the...
What do you mean I wasn't there? I remember distinctly.
George catches a glimpse of the front of the building with the neon sign over the door. It now reads Nick's Place instead of Martini's. They get to their feet.
What the? Hey, what's going on around here? Why? This ought to be Martini's place.
He points to the sign, looks at Clarence. Clarence hangs his head. George fixes him with a look.
Look, who are you?
I told you, George. I'm your guardian angel.
Yeah, I know. You told me that. What else are you? What? You a hypnotist?
No, of course not.
Well then, why am I seeing all these strange things?
Don't you understand, George? It's because you were not born.
And if I wasn't born, who am I?
You're nobody. You have no identity.
George searches his pockets for ID, but without success.
What do you mean, no identity? My name is George Bailey.
There's no George Bailey. You have no papers, no cards, no driver's license, no 4F card, no insurance policy.
George looks at his pocket watch.
They're not there either.
What?
Zuzu's pedals.
He turns his pockets inside out.
You've been given a great gift, George. A chance to see what the world would be like without you.
Well, now, wait a minute here. Wait a minute here. Is this some sort of funny dream I'm having here? So long, mister. I'm going home.
Home? What home?
Shut up. Cut it out. You're crazy. That's what I think. You're screwy, and you're driving me crazy too. I'm seeing things. I'm going home and see my wife and family. Do you understand that? I'm going home alone.
George strides off hurriedly. Clarence slowly follows him, glancing up toward heaven as he goes.
How am I doing, Joseph? Thanks. No, I didn't have a drink.
Medium shot. As George moves into the scene on the street, the sign bears the name of the town reading Pottersville. George looks at it in surprise, then starts up the street. As he goes, the camera goes with him. The character of the place is completely changed. It's now like a frontier village. Nightclubs, cafes, bars, pool halls, and the like, blaring jazz, the devil's music from the majority of them. The movie theater is now a burlesque house. The drugstore is now a pawnbroker, and so on. George stops before what was the building and loan. It now reads, Welcome, Jitterbugs. A crowd of people are watching the police, raiding the place, dragging out screaming women who they throw into a patrol wagon. George talks to one of the cops.
Hey, where did the building loan move to?
Building in what?
The Bailey Building and Loan. It was up there.
Oh, they went out of business years ago.
George sees the struggling figure of Violet Bick, arrayed as a tart, being dragged into the patrol wagon.
Hey, Violet. Hey, listen, that's Violet Bick.
I know.
I know that girl.
Cop shoves George to one side. He looks and sees Ernie's taxi cruising by.
Hey, Ernie.
Ernie stops the cab. George gets in.
Ernie, take me home. I'm off my nut.
Where do you live?
Oh, now doggone it, Ernie. Don't start pulling that stuff. You know where I live. 23 Sycamore. Now hurry up.
Okay, 320 Sycamore.
Yeah, hurry up. Zuzu's sick.
All right.
Ernie is puzzled by the stranger.
Look, Ernie, straighten me out here. I've got some bad liquor or something. Listen to me now. Now, you are Ernie Bishop, and you live in Bailey Park with your wife and kid. That's right, isn't it?
You seen my wife?
Seen your wife? I've been to your house 100 times.
Look, bud, what's the idea? I live in a shack in Potter's Field. My wife ran away 3 years ago, and I took the kid. I ain't never seen you before in my life.
Okay, just step on it. Just get me home.
Ernie turns to driving, but he's worried about the passenger. As he passes the bus, he sees Bert the cop standing beside his patrol car. Attracting his attention, he motions to Bert to follow him, indicating nutcase in the back seat. Bert gets into his car and follows. The taxi pulls up, stops. George gets out and looks at the house.
Is this the place?
Of course it's the place.
This house ain't been lived in for 20 years.
George is stopped by the appearance of the house. Windows are broken. The porch sags. Like a doomed man, George approaches the house. The police car is pulled up beside the cab, and Ernie stand watching George's actions. What's up, Ernie?
I don't know, but we better keep an eye out on this guy. He's bats.
Ernie switches on the spotlight on his cab, shines it on the house. The interior of the house is lit up here and there, ghost-like by Ernie's spotlight. No furniture, cobwebs. In a voice like a cry for help, George yells out.
Mary, Tommy, Pete, Janie, Zuzu, where are you?
Clarence appears against a wall.
They're not here, George. You have no children.
Where are you? What have you done with them?
Bert is standing in the entrance with his gun in his hand. Ernie's a few feet behind him, ready to run. All right, put your hands up. No fast moves. Come on out of there, both of you.
Bert, oh, thank heaven you're here.
He rushes toward Bert. Stand back.
Bert, what's happened to this house? Where's Mary? Where's my kids?
Watch him, Bert.
Come on.
Bert, Ernie, what's the matter with you guys? You were here on my wedding night. Both of you stood out here on the porch and sung to us. Don't you remember?
I think I'd better be going.
Look, now, why don't you be a good kid and we'll take you into a doctor. Everything's going to be all right. Bert tries to wave by the arm, but George struggles.
Bert, now listen to me, Ernie. Will you take me over to my mother's house? Bert, listen. It's that fellow there. He says he's an angel. He's trying to hypnotize me.
I hate to do this, fella. Bert raises his gun to hit George on the head, but Clarence darts in and fixes his teeth in Bert's wrist, forcing him to let George go.
Run, George! Run, George!
George dashes out of the house, down the street. As Bert grapples with Clarence, they fall to the ground wrestling. We see Bert kneeling, trying to put handcuffs
Help!
on Clarence.
Help! Joseph! Help!
Shut up.
Help! Oh, Joseph! Help! Joseph!
Suddenly, Clarence disappears from under Bert's hands. Bert gets up, amazed by the vanishing act. Where'd he go? I had him right here. Ernie's hair is standing up.
I need a drink.
He runs out of the scene. Well, which way did they go? Help me find them. George runs up the path to the front door of the house and raps on it. He rings the bell, taps on the glass. The sign reads, Ma Bailey's boarding house. A woman appears. It's Mrs. Bailey, but she has changed amazingly. Her face is harsh and tired. Her eyes are now filled with cold suspicion. She gives no sign that she knows him.
Well,
Mother?
Mother, what do you want?
Cruel blow.
Mother, this is George. I thought sure you'd remember me.
George who? If you're looking for a room, there's no vacancies.
Starts to close the door, but George stops her.
Oh, Mother, Mother, please help me. Something terrible's happened to me. I don't know what it is. Something's happened to everybody. Please, let me come in. Please, just keep me here until I get over it.
Get over what? I don't take in strangers unless they're sent here by somebody I know.
Well, I know everybody you know. Your brother-in-law, Uncle Billy.
You know him?
Well, sure I do.
When did you see him last?
Today, over at the house.
That's a lie. He's been in the insane asylum ever since he lost his business. And if you ask me, that's where you need to be.
She shuts the door in George's face. He stands a moment, stunned, then turns, runs out to the sidewalk till his face fills the screen. His features are distorted by the chaos within. We see Clarence leaning on the mailbox at the curb, holding his volume of Tom Sawyer.
Strange, isn't it? Each man's life touches so many other lives, and when he isn't around, he leaves an awful hole, doesn't he?
Oh, I've heard of things like this. You got me in some kind of spell or something. Well, I'm gonna get out of it. I'll get out of it. I know how to. Last man I talked to before all this stuff started to happen to me was Martini.
You know where he lives?
Sure, I know where he lives. He lives in Bailey Park.
Wipe to the cemetery. George and Clarence approach the trees from which the Bailey Park sign once hung. It's now just outside a cemetery with graves where the houses used to be.
Are you sure this is Bailey Park?
Oh, I'm not sure of anything anymore. All I know is this should be Bailey Park. Where are the houses?
They walk into the cemetery.
You weren't there to build them.
George wanders like a lost soul among the tombstones. Clarence trotting at his heels. George stops and stares with frightened eyes at a tombstone that reads Harry Bailey in memory of our beloved son, 1911 to 1919.
Your brother, Harry Bailey, broke through the ice and was drowned at the age of 9.
Well, that's a lie. Harry Bailey went to war. He got the Congressional Medal of Honor. He saved the lives of every man on that transport.
Every man on that transport died. Harry wasn't there to save them because you weren't there to save Harry. You see, George, you really had a wonderful life. Don't you see? Don't you see what a mistake it would be to throw it away?
Clarence.
Yes, George?
Where's Mary?
I can't, but...
I don't know how you know these things, but tell me, where is she?
George grabs Clarence by the coat collar.
If you know where she is, tell me where my wife is.
I'm not supposed to tell.
Please, Clarence, tell me where she is.
You're not going to like it, George.
Where is she?
She's an old maid. She never married.
Where's Mary? Where is she?
Where is she? She's just about to close up the library.
George lets Clarence go and runs off. Clarence falls to the ground where he rubs his neck.
There's got to be some easier way to get my wings.
Meanwhile, at the library, Mary comes out, then turns and locks the door. We see George watching her from the sidewalk. She's very different. No buoyancy in her walk. None of her abandon and love of life. Glasses, no makeup, lips compressed, elbows close to body. She looks flat and dried up and self-satisfied and efficient. George, as he watches her.
Mary. Mary.
He looks up
Mary.
surprised, but not recognizing, continues on.
Mary. Mary.
He catches her, grabs her by the arms, keeps a tight grip on her. She struggles to free herself.
Mary, it's George. Don't you know me? What's happened to us?
I don't know you. Let me go.
Mary, please. Oh, don't do this to me, please. Mary. Mary, help me. Where's our kids? I need you, Mary. Help me, Mary.
She breaks away from him and dashes into the first door she comes to, the Blue Moon Bar. Inside, small tables, booths, maybe a counter. It's crowded. A lot of people are the same who were present during the run on the building and loan. Mary runs in screaming. The place goes into an uproar. George comes in, practically insane. Some men grab him and hold him.
Mary! Hey, let me go. Mary, don't run away.
Somebody call the police.
Hit it with that bottle.
We're not on. Yeah, we are.
Hit me with that bottle. He needs a straight jacket.
Tom and Charlie, that's my wife.
Mary lets out a final scream, then faints in the arms of a couple of women at the bar.
Mary.
Oh, no, you don't.
Mary!
George can't fight through the men holding him. Desperately, he thinks of Clarence and heads for the door.
Clarence, where are you?
Just as George breaks through the door, Bert arrives in his police car. He gets out and heads for the door to run into George as he comes out. Oh, it's you. He grabs for George, who lets him have one square on the button, knocking him down, then continues running down the street, yelling for Clarence. Bert gets up, takes out his gun, fires at an unarmed man. Stand back! Bert gets into the police car, siren screaming, sets off in pursuit of George. We're at the bridge over the river now, the same bridge where George was standing before Clarence jumped in. The wind is... George runs into the shot. He's looking for Clarence.
Clarence, help me, Clarence. Get me back. I don't care what happens to me. Only get me back to my wife and kids. Help me, Clarence. Please. I want to live again.
He leans on the bridge, praying.
I want to live again. Please, God, let me live again.
Sobs. Suddenly, toward the end of the above, the wind dies down. A soft, gentle snow begins to fall. The police car pulls up on the roadway behind him, and Bert comes into the scene. Hey, George, you all right? George backs away, gets ready to hit him again.
Well, no, you get out of here, Bert. I'll hit you again. Get out.
What in the Sam Hill you yelling for, George?
Don't. George.
George talks hopefully. He touches Bert unbelievingly, his mouth bleeding again.
Bert, do you know me?
No, are you kidding? I've been looking all over town trying to find you. I saw your car piled into that tree down there, and I thought maybe, hey, your mouth's bleeding. Are you sure you're all right?
What did...
George touches his lips with his tongue, wipes his mouth with his hand, laughs happily.
Yeah, my mouth's bleeding, Bert. My mouth's bleeding. Zuzu's pedals. They're here. Bert, what do you know about that? Oh, Merry Christmas.
He practically embraces the astonished Bert, then runs at top speed toward town. George runs away from the camera, yelling,
Mary!
We see George's wrecked car. He runs past it, lets out a yell, and passes on. He sees that the Pottersville sign is now replaced by the original "You are now in Bedford Falls" sign.
Hello, Bedford Falls.
He passes some late shoppers on the street.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas, George.
Merry Christmas, movie house. Merry Christmas, Emporium. Merry Christmas, you old wonderful building and loan.
He notices a light on in Potter's office window. Races across.
Merry Christmas, Mr. Potter.
Happy New Year to you. In jail. On home, they're waiting for you.
At George's home, the lights are on. There's a fire in the fireplace. The Christmas tree is fully decorated with presents stacked around. Carter, the bank examiner, a newspaper reporter, photographer, and a sheriff are all waiting in the hall for George. George dashes in the front door.
Mary. Oh, well, hello, Mr. Bank Examiner.
He shakes his hand.
Mr. Bailey, there's a deficit.
I know. $8,000.
George, I've got a little paper here.
I'll bet that's a warrant for my arrest. Isn't it wonderful? Merry Christmas.
Photographer.
Reporters? Where's Mary? Mary!
Runs to the kitchen. No answer.
Look at this wonderful old drafty house. Mary!
Runs to the hall.
Have you seen my wife?
Merry Christmas, Daddy!
Merry Christmas, Daddy!
Oh, kids!
Yeah, George starts up the stairs. The old familiar knob on the banister comes off in his hand. He kisses it lovingly, puts it back.
Pete, kids, Janie, Tommy, I could eat you up.
He's hugging the kids.
No. Where's your mother?
She went out looking for you with Uncle Billy.
Zuzu comes out of her bedroom. George crushes her to him.
Daddy.
Zuzu, my little ginger snap. How do you feel?
Fine. Got a smidge of temperature.
Oh, not a smidge of temp.
Mary comes through the door, breathless and excited. The four men are watching with open mouths.
Hallelujah!
Hello, George, darling.
Mary races up the stairs, where George meets her in a fierce embrace.
Mary.
George, darling, where have you been?
Oh.
George.
Mary,
George.
let me touch you. Oh, you're real.
Oh, George.
You have no idea what happened to me.
You have no idea what happened.
He stops her with a kiss. She leads him excitedly down the stairs.
Well, come on, George. Come on downstairs quick. They're on their way.
All right.
George, who's carrying a couple of kids, to a position in front of the Christmas tree.
Come on in here now. Now, you stand right over there by the tree. Right there. And don't move. Don't move. I hear them now. George, it's a miracle. It's a miracle.
He runs toward the front door, flings it open. Sounds of an excited crowd can be heard. Uncle Billy, covered with snow, carrying a clothes basket filled with money, bursts in, followed by Ernie and about 20 more townspeople.
Come in, Uncle Billy. Everyone in here.
They all come into the living room. Table stands in front of George. He picks up Zuzu to protect her from the mob. Uncle Billy dumps the bucket full of money onto the table. The money overflows and falls all over.
Isn't it wonderful?
The rest of the crowd come in, greets George with smiles. Are all carrying money in shoeboxes, pockets, coffee pots. Pours onto the table, lots of it. They push toward George. More people come in. The place becomes bedlam. Shouts of gangway as new bunch comes in. They pour money onto the table, onto the floor. George is overcome and speechless as he holds Zuzu. He sees familiar faces, gives them sick grins. Tears course down his face. His lips frame their names as he greets them.
Mary did it, George. Mary did it. She told a few people you were in trouble, and they scattered all over the town collecting money. They didn't ask any questions, just said, if George is in trouble, count me in. You never saw anything like it.
Tom comes in, digging in his purse as he does.
What is this, George? Another run on the bank?
Charlie adds his money to the pile.
Here you are, George. Merry Christmas.
Ernie's trying to get some system into the chaos.
The line forms on the right.
Mr. Martini comes in bearing a mixing bowl overflowing with cash.
Mr. Martini, Merry Christmas. Step right up here.
He dumps his money on the table.
I busted the jukebox too.
Mr. Gower comes in with a large glass jar.
Mr. Gower.
Made the rounds of my charge accounts.
Violet Bick arrives, takes money out that George had given her for the trip to New York.
Violet Bick.
I'm not going to go, George. I changed my mind.
Annie the maid enters digging money out of the long black stocking.
I've been saving us money for a divorce if I ever get a husband.
Mr. Partridge is the next donor.
There you are, George. I got the faculty all up out of bed. And here's something for you to play with, little girl.
I wouldn't have a roof over my head if it weren't for you, George.
Ernie's reading a telegram he just received.
Just a minute. Quiet, everybody. Quiet. Now, this is from London. Mr. Gower cables you need cash. Stop. My office instructed to advance you up to $25,000. Stop. Hee-haw and Merry Christmas, Sam Wainwright.
The crowd breaks into a cheer as Ernie drops the telegram on the table on top of the pile of money.
Mr. Martini, how about some wine?
Various members of the family bring out punch bowl and glasses. Janie sits down at the piano, strikes a chord. She starts playing Hark the Herald Angels Sing. And the entire crowd joins in.
Hark the herald angels
A series of shots, this group singing the hymn. More people bringing money. Carter the bank examiner makes a donation. The sheriff does too, tears up the warrant. In the midst of the scene, here comes Harry, why not? And Bert the cop.
Hello, George. How are you?
Harry.
Mary, looks like I got here too late.
Mary, I got him here from the airport as quickly as I could. The fool flew all the way up here in a blizzard. Mrs. Bailey.
Harry, how about your banquet in New York?
Oh, I left right in the middle of it, as soon as I got Mary's telegram.
Ernie hands Harry a glass of wine.
Good idea, Ernie. A toast to my big brother, George, the richest man in town.
Once more, the crowd breaks into cheering and applause. Janie at the piano and Bert on his accordion start playing Auld Lang Syne, and everyone joins in.
Take a cup of cheer.
Then some jostling, and then a little silver bell on the Christmas tree swings to and fro with a silvery tinkle. Zuzu closes the cover of the book and points to the bell.
Daddy, teacher says every time a bell rings, an angel gets its wings.
Oh, that's a Christmas present from a friend of mine. Yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah. Atta boy, Clarence.
The voice of the people swell into a final crescendo.
Good old acquaintance.
You people.
Malachi is the
Merry Christmas!
Merry
Merry Christmas!
Well done.
Good job, everybody.
Merry Christmas.
Stopping the live stream. This will be available on YouTube if you want to watch part of it on your own. Share it with some